Beautiful evening here, still rocking double digits in terms of the Celsius measurement. 13 degrees, no wind to speak about. The sunshine has been pretty much constant since sun up at 5:30, 5:45 this morning. We could not have had better conditions with which to grab our evening meal. Big crowd on hand. They've been here. Talking to one or two of the officials here earlier on today, the campsites were opened on Monday morning, and on Sunday night there were people queuing here getting ready to camp, and certainly the ones that we can see from our house down the road about 5 minutes from our global broadcast centre, they were very busy indeed last night. The fireworks had already started. The banging music was going on. It is a party atmosphere. It's a holiday today here in Germany for Ascension Day, which is the traditional weekend of the Nürburgring 24 hours. That is literally a movable feast because it is linked to Easter, which also, of course, moves around. Welcome along if you're just joining us in sound and vision across the world via YouTube and via the video pages of radiolemans.com. We have audio for you if you are bandwidth compromised or maybe you're moving around. We don't want you, as much as we love our pictures here, we don't want you watching whilst you're driving. Link your mobile device to the car and listen in. You'll still get all of the atmosphere. At RSL_studio, the hashtag is RSLN24. And joining me, John Hindhaugh, in the Global Broadcast Centre tonight, two of our regular voices for the Nürburgring Langstrecke series, the VLN run and coordinated long track series, long circuit series that runs throughout the year. And that's Bruce Jones and Peter Snowden. Good evening, Bruce, and welcome to the Nürburgring.
John, thank you very much. A delight to be here any time, any race meeting through the year, but this is something really special, and driving across today in glorious weather, I thought, is this the Nürburgring I know? Because I spent an awful lot of time with the NLS describing the comings and goings of the weather. But right now, for all these drivers, any time is golden time when the track is dry. They're trying to get as much track time in, but it's not just the cars competing in the Nürburgring 24 hours that have been busy on track. And I know that you and Peter Mackay have been looking out the window, looking at the screens, that the most unlikely little cars, the little Simca catching your attention earlier on. Busy time, but going back to the fans, they take their camping so seriously. You think at Le Mans, camping is a big thing, it's huge, but it's the way that the locals and people from all around Germany and Middle Europe come to the Nürburgring. It's not a day and night of racing, it's an entire week of professional level camping and carousing, I think we call it.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable indeed. The interesting thing for me is that so many people came so early, but also they were out today trackside watching. Peter Snowden with us here as well, and we had 206 cars go out and set times in that classic event, but not one single Aston Martin, which I know will actually, that would be like an arrow through your heart.
Absolutely. Not an Aston. You can't. How can you have any race in the world without an Aston Martin? There should be a law. Well, there is a law against it, so I think we need to look into that and get that changed. But as you say, John, an extraordinary event, and evening conditions here, beautiful weather as you've mentioned, perfect condition for a driver here. The Nordschleife in the evening, that little bit cooler. Go out there, enjoy the Nordschleife, but it's serious time.
You've driven this track and raced on this track many times, Peter.
Done this event,
and with some success. And the issue is here on a normal racetrack. I would say this is perfect because we've had sun all day, and now the temperature's dropped from 21, 22 degrees down to about 13 Celsius. But of course, on a normal track, a normal road circuit, natural terrain road circuit, as the Americans would call it, you would still have that heat of the sun being baked into, literally, as we get the green light at the end of the pit lane, baked into the surface. Here, of course, out in the forests, some of the track's been out of the sunshine now for 2.5, 3 hours. So how do you deal with that as a driver and a tyre engineer to say, all right, you can go and put your tyre probe on here or somewhere else. We don't even have a track temperature listed here because I guess it's fairly pointless.
It is to some extent, and of course it's such a long lap that one side of the circuit might be that, a little bit might be in the sun, and it's as our colleague Nick Damon would say, it's your job. That's what they've got to do.
Also Father's Day in Germany, done very differently than how we would know it back in the UK, thanks to Right Turn Lover. Roxy is back with us, looking forward to Q2. Not at work this time, so I don't have to hide my screen. I'll have the volume down. There was an awful lot of people earlier on in various places in the world who were covertly listening. Dave Edwards, I'm having flashbacks to a certain car from last year's N24 pitted every few laps who he says, any idea who I'm talking about? Yes. The real Braden Ryan, listening to part 2 of qualifying. All around the world, wherever you are, the excitement is palpable. 2 fan favourites on the pit apron, and it is the return of the Manta Foxtail at Manta_Foxtail. Brand new set of tyres, sticker tyres on that car. Remember, wasn't here last year. Had a fire, it was burned to the ground. It has been resurrected. It has risen like a foxtail from the ashes. No, that's not right, is it?
It's near enough.
It's near enough. Yeah, thank you, Bruce. You have the education. You two have the education, you know. And it looks even sharper than it did before. New panels. I must ask Volker Strycek what is actually left of the old
Probably
car.
best not to.
It's got
new slicks.
It's got brand new slicks, yeah. 20 years since Volker Strycek won outright in the Astra Coupe V8 here, and the former head of OPC, Opel Performance Centre, who presided over so much of Opel's success and has continued with his family to be involved in this with the Manda. He's got some of his children, he's raced with them down through the years. And interestingly, of course, this weekend, Opel, now part of Stellantis, which is depending on how you measure it, either the biggest or the second biggest car conglomerate in the world. And we have a TCR car running here with 4 major executives, including the big man himself, Carlos Tavares, in that car. Imperatori's in that car as well. Now the good news is for their insurers, they're not all in it at once, so they wouldn't be allowed to do that. But prove if proof were needed, Bruce, that the guys at the head of big manufacturing corporation, Uli Betts used to do it for Aston Martin. Andy Palmer's been here before again for Aston Martin. Actually, Toyota for the family at the head of Toyota. This is a race that attracts everybody from the Dacias to the big groups, and people who are petrol heads want to drive there.
Absolutely, but just going back to racing executives, you can throw Jim Farley at Ford into that mix, and he's really getting a company that's, you know, you think back to the 70s and 80s, everywhere you look, any form of motorsport competition, Ford was in there. I think they're going to be going back. And I think the right hand is on
GT3 car next year.
Yep, and
Jim's
it does
been driving
sound
the GT4.
the business at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
But then Carlos Tavares, we've seen him come and compete in the Dubai 24 Hours and other events. So they pick and choose. Obviously, they're fairly busy people, but yeah, great news. But one of the things that always strikes me about the Nürburgring 24 Hours is you get cars entirely crewed by journalists. In fact, there's one in SP10 this year.
Jetro Bovingdon
Exactly.
among those, yeah.
And I just like this mix, and it really they're very, very clever. It makes far better coverage. It puts it in front of more people. And if you know, almost everybody listening and watching around the world through the course this weekend will be from one end to the other end of the spectrum of, you know, lifelong motor racing fan versus people coming to it with their friends for the first time. But it's just when people, and Peter and I talk about this every round, when you see this circuit, it blows your mind away the first time.
Now, if you're following along on the World Wide Web and you've got the timing up at www.24h. Shall we do that again? This doesn't bode well for the weekend, does it? W can't read, can't talk. This could be problematical. www.24h.rennen.de and go to the live section there. You can have live timing and scoring. You may think, hell's bells, they've gone round quickly and put a time in there. Actually, they haven't. That is the time from the earlier session. Our timing partners here have put the times in. So what you see on the screen were the times that were set in the first session earlier on today. If you weren't with us, it was stunning, and the times were quick. The Mercedes-AMG team Bilstein GT3, the number 6 car, was the quickest, and with an 8:14.785. Now that's hauling for this early in the week. If we keep evolving the track here, Peter, if we don't get rain overnight, and if we get a day like the day tomorrow, by the time we get to single car qualifying, we could be breaking the lap record, qualifying record, which has stood for 5 years.
Yeah, we could very easily, very easily. Which is not what the authorities want, because 8 minutes is the magic mark for these SP9s, as they call them, cars here, GT3 cars as we know them in the rest of the world. But 8 minutes is the magic time. They don't want them going under that, really. And we saw that, I think it was one of our rounds, wasn't it, Bruce, a couple of years ago with Nicky Team in the Aston that was getting towards the end of an LS race while I was leading, and a matter of seconds to go. I could have just slowed down on the Dottingerhoe through Tiergarten and then just taken the flag. But no, he totally crossed the line with 7 or 8 seconds to go, and then put in the fastest lap of the race with a 7:53 or something crazy.
It was eye-opening.
And why did he do it? Because he could. Exactly. Yes.
Don't ever tell a driver to go slowly. It's just not going to work, is it?
It's not wired, not hardwired.
It really isn't going to work. Hello to Chris Humphreys, one of the Orange Army, back home from work, listening in. Kev Hamilton on RSL_studio, hashtag RSLN24. How stunning does the Nürburgring look this evening? What's the weather looking like for the shootout? I daren't say this, but then again, I'm not Johnny Palmer, so I probably won't curse it. So, you know, Palmer is here as well. You'll hear him in the second half of this session. He's, at the moment, just doing his warm-up exercises for the next hour and a half.
0% chance of rain.
This evening?
Correct.
Yeah. Tomorrow?
You really want to go that? Okay.
Yeah. Look, the weather forecast I've seen, and I've been talking to the locals here.
Okay.
If you want to know what the weather is here... Oh, how good did that AMG sound? If you want to know what the weather is going to be like here in the next half an hour, 40 minutes, look down past the Mercedes Arena, and that's where the weather comes from. Simple as that. Saturday,
10% chance later in the day.
22, high, low of around about 4 or 5. Overnight, It's going to be chilly. Overnight, Saturday into Sunday. If you're camping here over the weekend, you better be pro-grade. Make sure you get back to somewhere warm. I wouldn't leave... See, if this was a gardening show, don't leave anything out uncovered, I would say, overnight.
Sunday, 19 degrees and 5% chance of rain.
And that's from what I've
later.
seen, that's much later.
Yes.
That's unfortunately for those that have got to pack up. That's pack up time.
Yeah, so that was for the campers, so they knew, not the race cars.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Don't leave your friend uncovered.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, already, we're still looking at the time at the top of the screen. Arjun Maini's time of 8 minutes, 14.785 seconds, as you pointed out, John, from the first qualifying session.
Yeah.
We've got 3.5 hours of fun in this session, but already going around the circuit, Ricardo Feller in the number 16 Audi, entered by Shearer Sport PHX, which is that combination of Shearer Sport and the Phoenix Racing team. He's got a lot of purple on the screen. If you're new to racing, that means fastest of everybody. So we could be seeing some real intent. But I really think that point about dry days here, lots of cars going around. Some of them even managed to go on the racing line. So the rubber is going down all the time. And it's still, what was it, just before the session, 13 degrees. It's still warm enough, and the heat in the track is still there for more to go down. So I think we're going to start seeing some really quick times this evening.
We've got something here that we've not had before in the shape of GT2 cars. There's 2 of them in SPX. Peter Mackay and I had a crawl over one of them yesterday during Midweek Motorsport when we were doing the first part of that from the pit lane. Sorry, I really do feel I have to pause when they go under the bridge there as they go by our effects mics. They look a very, very well-developed car, but they're slippery, they're powerful, and down the Dottingerhoe, Bruce, those GT2 cars, keep an eye on the numbers of those, because we do get the trap speeds on the screens. And this session in particular, I want to keep an eye on them, because I think they're going to be really quick.
Well, they're quicker than a GT3 car.
In a straight line.
Yeah. Because of the bop on them, yeah.
But it's also that the GT2 was effectively brought into life to give people bigger figures than before in the sort of trump card world of motor racing. You're a gentleman racer. GT3 is chock full of talent, but you've got a car that's more powerful. I can see what they're trying to do there, and I think it's taking a while to catch on, but with cars like the latest Mercedes looking so strong in GT2, just look at the numbers grow through this year, and then next year, again, it'll be GT4. Now, wherever they put out a race for that, they can get 40-plus cars, GT3 all around the world. Last weekend I was in Thailand, we had 25 cars. When we go to the next round at Fuji, the weekend after Le Mans, we got 45 cars.
Yeah.
Look at Brands Hatch, they had to limit them because there wasn't enough space in the paddock, but they've got a 40-plus entry, 55. You know, you just do the numbers, and we're coming across today saying just in 4 championships run by Stefan Vettel and the GT World Challenge, there are effectively 200 cars.
I mean, GT3,
wind the clock back 20 years, and they were struggling to get 20 across the world.
Yeah, I mean, GT3, there's no other word for it. It's been an absolute phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing.
Oh, yes.
And I think there is room for, GT4 is successful. It's a great entry level. But I do think there's definitely room for GT2. I think it's absolutely fabulous.
I totally agree. I'm always disappointed when there aren't more GT4 cars, because I do think that's a great category. But they're getting so sophisticated nowadays. GT3, the new, you were talking about Ford there, but we're talking amongst ourselves here, but we are watching the times. Michael Grenier just coming on to the Dottinger for Galgikov now in the number 29, the 29th position, 222 SPX car, as he, in fact, actually, you know what, he's coming to the end of the lap, my apologies. So what's he going to get? We've got a yellow flag at the Advan Arch, that's Marshall Post 40, Grenier 8:29.6. So these are tonight's times coming in the number 19. Now, I'll come back to that point in a moment, gentlemen, because we have had an improvement, and it's a significant one in terms of the car, because it is the number 19, which is the Racing 1 Pro-Am Ferrari 296 GT3. Luca Ludwig in that car, along with Stefan Haus, Christian Kohlhaas and Johannes Stengel. So Luca is the gun driver there. But he's just improved that car to an 8:23.702. So that is an improvement on that car. The Ferraris, by the way, getting a slight change in their BOP with... Now, Peter Mackay's the expert on this, but he talked me through it earlier on. Extra weight, more boost in the mid-range, and less boost in the mid-range, but a slightly bigger restrictor. That was the Lamborghini. So what was the restrictor for the... More weight? Less revs. Okay, so they've just slowed it down. Right, so they haven't balanced it out. That 296, if you get a chance, if you're here, it's like a prototype.
When the first images of that car came out, you know, we've all commentated on the various Ferraris over the year, the 458 Italia becoming the 488, that's sleeker, but this one was like 3 steps forward. It looks so fast standing still. It's finding its feet, but it is just the work of art.
There's elements of it that I love. That kick-up just in front of the back wheels, and then the flat top. 330p all day. Yeah. You can absolutely see. You stand behind it, and then you can see the slots either side of the rear lights that almost look like a Group 5 car, the way that the air is being exited from under the wheel arches. Then you look around the front, and it looks like it's an advert for the new closest shaving razor. It's got so much on the front there, and it's working. And even behind the front set of those canards, just in front of the front wheel arch and inside the front wheel arch, they're working there. This is no compromise from Ferrari with that car, Bruce.
Zero compromise. It's almost as though they said, right, okay, we're stepping up. We know we're coming into prototype racing, but we're going to clean up in the level below. We're going to do GT3 and take on everybody, all the other manufacturers. But of course, the thing in GT3 is the fact. So let's wind it back to the hybrid class in sports prototypes. Toyota have been there for a while. They've got a lot of thoughts, but in GT3 they're constantly being rebalanced, and there's so many manufacturers who are made to be at the same level. So I think if they can go back to as they were in the 60s. That's why they're coming back to Le Mans, to get to where they were in the 60s, when they had that amazing battle that eventually was extinguished by Ford. But they don't only want to win in prototypes, they want to win in the GT class as well, because that's closest to selling road cars. It's the very essence of it.
And I think they've got a very simple philosophy at Ferrari. Go large or go home.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And Friccadelli put that to very great use at the last NLS round, winning outright. Porsche, they've always been Porsche, Friccadelli. They switch to the Ferrari, and what do? Win the round.
We talked about, again, we talked about this earlier and yesterday, but new people coming in all the time. So I'd like your take on this, Peter. That Friccadelli car is a team of all talent in terms of the drivers, but no factory Ferrari drivers in that.
No. Not at all. It's exactly what Bruce had just been saying. It's as it was in the 60s, 70s. It was, the David Pipers of the world, the amateurs, the gentlemen that drive the Ferraris. They were semi-supported by Ferrari, as in I think they got bits when they were broken and necessarily couldn't afford them. And it was, and we know David Piper had his magic shelf, all about that, where he took bits off and they came back to life again. But I think with some Ferrari assistance along the way. But that is exactly what it should be. A customer car, a team that's synonymous with Porsche, switch to a Ferrari. Think about the conversation they've had in the boardroom to do that. Of, we're going to leave our loyalty of Porsche all those years and success and switch to Ferrari. You've got to be confident it's going to do what it did, and boy, has it done ever. By the way, very quickly, John, the yellow flags caused by the SRS Team Sorg Rennsport BMW VT2 goes 522. That's gone off at with our yellow flag. We've also got number 320 in the gravel at turn 1 as well.
Yeah, that's the smooth up
the
car.
First corner, sorry, not turn 1. That's a lot of time I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
Bruce will hit
That's
me.
a GT3 Cup 991 at the start, end of the start-finish straight. The Ties Leukers and Simon is a BMW 330i at the Hattenbach-Morgan area of the GP track, so right at the very end of the G. Nothing more in terms of information than on technical defect for that. There is a tracker on the live site as well. If your German is as bad as mine, you might want to switch your translate on. It kind of works. Just staying with Ferrari at the moment, and we're keeping an eye on the times, and we've just had a significant improvement. Third position for the 101 Kuba Gimaziak driven Valkenhorst Motorsport BMW, 8:16.384. That's good enough for third for them. So go on.
No, what I was about to say, for those that aren't conversant with Kuba Gimaziak's name, he's the reigning NLS champion, but he took years away from racing. Did lots of racing in the Porsche Super Cup and racing here and there, but he went home, ran the family business for a while, came back, and he's come back at another level. I think sometimes drivers, it does them a lot of good to have a sort of reset, recalibrate why they want to go racing. And almost every race, Peter, last year, he was challenging in the top 3, and I always thought, is that someone else in his overalls who played so many games?
Yeah, a different person coming back, wasn't it? But also on another level, that Bruce, that he came back with Audi.
Absolutely.
And was just synonymous with Audi again. And then what's he done now? Switch to this BMW M4, which is another contender in this race. And it's they've done well in NLS. They haven't yet mastered the 24-hour. They've not had the luck, but some great lineups there. And look at the BMW Junior team.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
just
a strong lineup.
The crew with Kuba. He's got Christian Cronjes, who's won the Spa 24 Hours before, does a lot of racing here. Jesse Crone, who's just about the guy to have in a BMW M4 GT3. And Andy Soucek, who's absolutely nobody's fool, knows this circuit, increasingly racing here in the NLS. So that is a car 101 from the Walkenhorst Motorsport stable you need to look for.
It's not an amateur lineup, is it?
No, it isn't. And Arjun Maini, who still has the fastest time, is putting in a very quick lap in the number 6, one of the two Bilstein liveried Mercedes custard yellow with blue flashes all over it. Fastest in qualifying session 1, and he's hooking a very, very good lap together. Still, he has the fastest time, 8 minutes 14.785 seconds, but certainly the quicker times are a-coming. But at all points around the circuit, what they find here, they find traffic. It's how they negotiate it, because we're going to have, well, wait and see what the official grid will be when it's formed, but you're looking at about 150 starters.
Yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. That's whenever we have to try and explain this circuit to the layman, if you like, about what it's all about. The 150 odd cars on the circuit one time. The circuit at the moment have got waved yellows. We've got that's the Rennsport car that's just been pushed out of the way now.
The 522, the blue and white BMW. This is a, what did I say it was? 330i.
Yeah,
that car.
Yeah, it's the Rennsport, isn't it? Yeah.
Seaman behind the wheel, sitting pretty in 103rd out of, let me tell you how many we've seen this evening so far. We have seen 133 of the 135 entries.
So with those double wave yellow flags on the Grand Prix loop, it means quite a few of the front runners, including Grello, the Manthey Porsche, come at 9:11, diving the back way into the pit lane. No point going around the circuit just right now. A chance to report back to the engineers, possibly pop another driver in. But if you joined us, we've still got 3 hours and 11 minutes remaining in the session, 3 hours 30 in all. But for a lot of the drivers, there's a lot of standing around waiting for their turn in a 4-driver lineup, and a lot who are going to be going out later on will be going. It's dry, keep going around, gain the knowledge, see how the tyres are behaving. But unfortunately, that spiked the gun, I think, of Arjun Maini, who's trying to improve on his best time. In fact, no, he did get it through, he squeaked it through. 8 minutes 13.190 seconds. So it's Fred Makiewicz in the Manthey Porsche I just mentioned, car number 911, who's now just 0.3 of a second down, or just under that actually. 8 minutes 13.469. And Ricardo Feller, I said he was going very quickly at the start of the session in the number 16 Shearer Sport PHX Audi. He's third fastest, 8 minutes 15. Let's lose 8 thousandths and call it on the nose.
Very interesting that before a lot of people went out, the top 6 or 7 have all put in a quicker lap before things have got too busy out there, including Mike Rockenfeller, who had such a great weekend. I just want to, last weekend at WeatherTech, just want to finish on the Ferrari theme, guys. Wandering around the paddock earlier on today, there are Ferrari techs here from the hypercar program, both electronics, ECU techs and engine techs. And we've also got people here from Orica, who of course build the 296 on behalf of Ferrari. One or two eyebrows raised that it was them that got that, and not a more traditional Ferrari builder. But you know, Hugh Schoenack has down through the years worked for all 177 of the world's 100 car manufacturers. I mean, he's worked for manufacturers that don't exist anymore.
It's like looking down the sort of CV of RML, it's ProDrive, and you know, cream rises to the top, and you can see precisely. You're not going to come back and go, well, I hope this outfit's good enough. You go for the very best. So, you know, well done to Hughes.
Just reiterates what I said of go large or go ahead. That's what Ferrari have come back to do. They're not come back to say, you know, oh, we'll take on Le Mans. It's a totally different world now after 50 years away. It's half a century away from this level of racing. It's a totally different world. And it's a totally different amateur world as well for them, with these 296. Never mind the hypercar, you've got to have these engineers here, because that's what these people expect now, because motor racing's never been cheap, but it's serious money now. And the people that can afford to do it and buy 296s and buy drives in it in Pro-Am lives, you say they're selling road cars. That's what it's all about ultimately.
Now, what a lot of people may think, GT3 is a category all cars cost the same. Not so. The Ferrari will traditionally always cost more. The Audi is normally at the other end of the scale. Yeah. So you have many Audis, and then you can calibrate in between with Porsche and Mercedes. Of course, every deal is done on a different basis, but a lot of people, when they make their money and they come into sports car and GT racing, they have a feeling of what they want to race. And for some people to say, I'm a Ferrari racing driver, has a cachet that they very much desire. But Ferrari don't want to let them down, so that's why they're putting so much effort in.
And they are sold out for the next 2 years on the 296. So there you go. However, it won't be the most expensive GT3 car to go into customer hands, because next year there will be one that's considerably more expensive. Anybody want to have a guess? So I'm told.
A GT3 car?
Yeah.
Is it a Delage?
Yeah, it is no. Corvette, apparently, are setting their prices pretty high, but they're also taking it very seriously.
Which they do.
And given that they can't have an all-pro driver squad going to Le Mans or in the WEC, they will have 2 cars in the WEC, and I think when people find out who the team is going to be, they'll be quite impressed by that. It's a very good team that has provenance with other manufacturers. But I think here is a real opportunity Europe has always been a good selling ground for Corvette, both France and Germany. Ollie Gavin's got his Corvette driving school here in Germany. I expect to see 2 full works supported Corvettes here next year, and I wouldn't necessarily back against a Ford Mustang or 2 as well.
Only this evening, before we came on air, I was talking to Chris Reinke, Audi through and through, but we veered back into talking about Corvettes racing, and I said we're going to have one racing in Japan shortly to give us 12 manufacturers for the next round in Japan. And then I said it sort of takes me back. He said they've always been popular here, you know, the Callaway Corvettes, and I said it takes me back actually to the novelty and the rumble and the grunt of Gerd Rook and his brother racing their Ford Mustangs here back in the late 80s, early 90s, and he said there is always a place, he said definitely in the hearts of German fans, for something that makes a lot of grunty sounds.
The rumours of the demise of Audi Sport Customer Racing, to which, of course, Chris Reinke is the boss, perhaps somewhat overestimated. They've been doing great guns in the last few weeks with their customer racing teams. Chris is here. There's full support for all of the cars here. They're celebrating 40 years of Audi Sport Customer Racing with some great throwback liveries. I saw him not to talk to earlier on, but he gave me a cheery wave. In good spirits, Chris? Not like a man who is going to find himself out on the streets next week.
No, he's not like, he hasn't got the sort of the gallows look. He's looking absolutely fine. And you know what? You put someone like Chris at a racing circuit with the sun shining here on the Nordschleife, he's not going to be an unhappy man. Because like all the very best people in racing, he's someone who really deeply loves the sport. Yes, it's his job. Yes, it's our job apparently as well, John. But it's still something that, you know, actually, just a few minutes ago, looking at the images on the screen with the sun going down, getting softer and softer, this circuit is such a magical place. So I'm commentating with a smile on my face because it's just what it's all about.
I said we met a lovely German couple last night for dinner. Ursula and Gunther, great race fans, had a long chat with them, and I was explaining to Gunther that whilst I have a job, I don't do a day's work, and I haven't done for several years now. Yes, it's a job, but I don't classify it as work. It is such great fun to be part of this whole sports car and endurance feel of things. Keeping an eye on those times coming in. Lots of you tuning in the early evening here, just on 8:30 Central European summertime at RSL_studio, hashtag RSLN24H. Maurice is asking where the spotters guide is. There is one. I've seen it. Snowy has printed it out. Is there a URL on that?
There is. I can find that for you. It's an unofficial guide.
In the top corner there.
The top right-hand guide.
It's small light grey writing.
It's in the style of Andy Blackmore, and he's aware of it. That's fine. It is.
It's under Spotter's Guide.
Ziombel.
Just got.
All right.
444.
Ziombel_444.
Yeah.
You'll find.
That's Twitter, or just.
Sorry, that's Twitter. Yes.
Yeah. So that's Twitter. If you go onto the internet, www.spottersguide.
Yeah.
And you'll find it there.
Right, while you're sort of writing that down or tapping it into your computer, just to look at the top of the tables, the quicker light times are going to start coming in, but I just want to point out the variety at the top of the table. Still that number 6 Mercedes from Mercedes-AMG team, Bill Stein, still Arjun Maini's time, but then we go Mercedes first, Porsche second fastest, Audi third fastest, BMW fourth fastest. This is the variety we want to go for. The Lamborghini completing the top 10. Bulgarian racer Pavel Lefterov at the wheel, setting that time for Conrad Motorsport. So there we are, 5 manufacturers doing their business at the top. We'll wait for some others to join them because, of course, we've been talking about Ferrari, and we will see when they get their cars up the order. Aston Martin as well, of course. Darren Turner, former Le Mans class winner, here with the Doer team. Ben and Phil Dorr aboard that one as well. But at the moment, not troubling the scorers at the top of the sheets. That's still Mercedes leading, but just over a quarter of a second is the advantage they have. And it is going to come down because, as we said about 10 minutes ago, a lot of the cars thought double wave flags will come into the pits and therefore aborted their runs.
Yeah, doing it. Use the tyres. Let's take a few comments from our reporters down in the pit lane. Team principal of Schnitzelam Racing. They've got 2 cars and 2 different classes. Schnitzelam, if you don't know, is an all schnitzel restaurant. All schnitzel all day. Gunther Aberer says our two GT3, sorry, 3 cars they've got, are already qualified for top qualifying, so we'll drive out there with a full tank to prepare for tomorrow. That is something that we will have to remind ourselves. It has to be a full fuel tank for tomorrow for top qualifying. So you can't go out with just the dregs in. And Gunther also said we'll also be checking how the headlights adjusted. It's not about times, about every driver doing their 2 laps. And the GT2 is running well. We've changed a few things on that car. And we've also got a problem for the number 246 BMW M240i Racing Cup. That's at post 39.
Yes,
there's again the Ad Van Borgen arch on the Grand Prix circuit.
The ever-loyal Adrenaline Motorsport team. But they're
and
always
they have got
yes.
2 full pit garages at pit out again.
Yeah.
So 8 cars down there, spread between 2 garages right at pit out. Brilliant.
They just can't say no, can they?
Make that 7 now.
Yes.
Yes.
For now. Only
Makes
for
a
now.
bit more space. That's very good. Very thoughtful of the driver's concern.
Stacking.
A lot of people very, very excited about the thought of Corvette and Mustang coming here next year. I honestly believe, I just wonder, it's a little bit earlier in the year next year. Again, we talked about it being the movable feast. I think it's a couple of weeks earlier. It might be a tiny bit early in the programme for them, particularly if one, either or both, have committed to FIA WEC in their first year, and where that fits. And what the WEC calendar, that's very much of an unknown at the moment. We know they'll be starting in Qatar for the prologue. No Sebring next year as far as we know, but then probably back to the States sometime in February. We've got the reschedule Bathurst 12 hours to think about there.
That's 2 weeks later, isn't it?
That's been pushed further into 2 weeks to give people a chance to breathe after the Rolex 24 Daytona. What Bruce was saying earlier on in the show here about how GT3s have exploded from a pretty good start, but even in the last 2 or 3 seasons, it's gone bonkers again. It's gone to a different level in terms of how many. It does cause problems with the calendar. I mean, if you are racing a GT3, you could be doing in this year in consecutive weekends, pretty much. You could have been doing Dubai, the Raw before the 24, Rolex itself, and then Bathurst.
And you need a car on every continent.
And then actually South Africa SRO was just another week after.
Can I just mention while we're talking this, Bruce, John, that a certain chap called Kevin Estra took an 8 minute 13 in Grello.
Oh yes, he's popped into second.
Yes.
No, I tell you what, he's just taken over the car.
Yeah.
Because that popped in just before that time came, just before it dived into the pits. So
yeah, so Jesse Kroen's taken over the 101 Valkenhorst from Kuba Gamaziak, yeah? Right?
Yes, that'd be correct, because we saw Kuba in the car. So
Kuba did that time, I think. Yeah.
It's a little bit musk, but if you're just joining us, may I say, we can warm the cockles of your heart.
Settle back.
Cars taking off over the yumps around the Nordschleife. It's not good. It's way better than good. It's fabulous as the sun catches them. But again, you talked, John, just before the cars went out, about how it was a warmish evening, but the temperature gradient is going to be quite steep. But already a lot of the track has been, as you say, in the shade for many hours. So already that track temperature is going to be variable. Everything's variable at the Nordschleife. What am I talking about? But just going back to the thing about this race next year, the 24 hours being 2 weeks earlier, would it be good for Ford?
9th to the 14th of May? Did you just show 9th to the 12th?
Okay, so it's sort of a week.
A week.
But you know, a week can be a big time in sometimes the eternal spring, or here it can be the eternal winter. You know, if the track temperature's lower and they've got the 2 cars from Ford and General Motors from Chevrolet are not yet fully developed, the last thing they want is a slippery, cold surface.
Yeah, indeed. At RSL_studio.
Now, a team to watch is the BMW Junior team we mentioned earlier on, particularly the 72 numbered entry with Daniel Harper. Dan Harper at the wheel of this stunning success at the Silverton 500 in British GT a couple of weekends ago. Started 18th and still won it outright. 3-hour race, an absolutely extraordinary drive, and that whole team Nürburgring, Max Hesser as well. There's something a bit special. If anybody's owed a victory here, they are. They really are.
They talk about knocking on the door. They've nearly ripped it off its hinges.
We have a battering ram here. Hello. Couple of things. Couple of people asking about the qualifying regulations and how it's decided for people to get into the top qualifying. Can we just put that to one side? There's 6 spots left. 1 that's reserved for Pro-Am and 5 for the full Pro cars, or 5 for everybody else, actually. Because there are, I think, getting on for 7 pages of regulations to describe how lap times and performance from the NLS and qualifying weekend. Remember, NLS and this race are vaguely linked, but this is not part of the championship. And the NLS, which is overseen still by the VLN, but run by the individual races are run by individual motor car clubs, effectively. But some of that data, of course, is fed back into the ADAC, which are the overarching series organisers or event organisers for this. So let's put that to one side at the moment. There's 1 spot left for Pro-Am and 5 open spaces. And if you want to know who's qualified, we'll run through all of that tomorrow when we get closer into it. In fact, we'll let Peter and Johnny do that later on. That'll fill an hour of talking about that.
Alternatively, you at home can write your own rules and see if they actually sort of work with what we get out the other end.
And also a couple of people asking about the different pit lane entries, including Steve Tadman. Pit lane entries and exits, please. I'm guessing it's due to the amount of participants, but I'm not sure. Not exactly, Steve. In these early laps here in qualifying, you are not allowed to come into the pits directly from the end of the Nordschleife. So as you come down to the end of the Dottinger Höhe, through the Tiergarten and then back onto the Grand Prix circuit, you can't dive into the pits at that point. You have to go across the start-finish line. You then, if you want to come into the pits, do the full lap of the Grand Prix circuit, and then instead of going back out onto the Nürburgring, you drop back in to the pit lane. Or you could steer to the left-hand side of the cones and start another lap if you so desired. Maybe you want to talk to the pits, you want to let the tyres cool down. Similarly, if you come out of the pits, when you come out of the pits onto the Grand Prix circuit, there is only 1 pit exit, so you do the loop of the Grand Prix circuit. You then have the choice of either going on to the Nordschleife. Oh no, I've got a problem, I want to come back into the pits. So you come back into the pits and then you haven't spent 12 minutes going around the Nordschleife, or you've just warmed your tyres up a little bit more and you decide to go for a quali lap, so you can restart your lap. That time then starts as you go across the start-finish line. Basically, it means you don't have to do a full warm-up lap of the Nürburgring Nordschleife and the 15-point-odd miles of that. You can just do a quick squiz round the GP. Squiz is a technical term, by the way. So hopefully that's explained that for you. The current quali record has been asked as well from Baron Botches, and that I had on a piece of paper a moment or two ago. It's from 5 years ago. We got within 0.3 of it last year, and I gave the piece of paper to Peter with the quali records on. So
no, you didn't.
Mackay, it's under here, he says. His point is, so it's under there. It's from 5 years ago, I know that, and it's an 8 from the 24-hour race 5 years ago, and it's an 809.3.
809.105,
Yeah.
Lawrence Vanthoor, Manthey Porsche. Right.
We got an 809.4 last year.
Okay.
So that's the closest we've got to it within 5 years.
Right, a driver who just seems to be able to do no wrong in a GT3 car in the last handful of years, just putting a little bit of pinky purple on the screen. It's the inimitable Raffaele Marcello. Follow him on Twitter. He's a very, very funny individual, but by golly, he can make his car fly. At the moment, his car, the number 4, the sister car to the one that's top of the charts, the Mercedes team, Bilstein, is in 4th position, but he is absolutely cracking around. But we all know the 100X plus cars around the track, at any moment you could suddenly come across one, or worse from your point of view, 2 or 3 slower cars blocking your path. But certainly Raffaele Marcello, they've given him a strong coffee, patted him on the back, and off he's gone. And he's really picking up the pace. Now in 5th place, actually, not 4th. I couldn't read the screen properly. He's in car number 4. But look out for Raffaele Marcello. It's a given. But actually, Dan Harper, we've been watching him, and he was going well. And now Raffaele, halfway around the lap, putting more green on his screen.
Just to finish off our talk about qualifying, so the pre-qualifying for the cars that are already in, that's happened. We're not even going to try and attempt to quantify that. One more spot in the top qualifying on Friday for a Pro-Am car, and 5 other spots for anybody who can get in based on time. Then at that point, it's 2 flying laps. That's dead easy. Full tanks, 2 flying laps, off you go.
Explain, John, with those flying laps, how much separation is between the cars?
About 30 seconds, normally. About 30 seconds. Sometimes it's a bit longer, sometimes a bit shorter. But there are actually 2 sets of regulations for what's called top qualifying, depending on whether it's wet or dry. And the key thing is, and this is why those times are absolutely remarkable, is it has to be done on full tanks. And if you do the first part of top qualifying, you have to come back in and top those tanks up. So there's an elimination, and then there's a blast to set the grid.
It's basically so that you can't have a tank slapper that doesn't really slap you properly because your tanks are full.
Beautiful evening here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Free and live across the world. Vision on the World Fleet TV via YouTube, and we've got the player as well, of course, on radiolemans.com. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page there, you'll see the schedules for all the covered sessions, and everything everywhere up to race start on Saturday is free, uninterrupted and unblocked. For most people around the world, the race on Saturday, you won't have to change. If you're watching on the player on radiolemans.com now, you won't have to change. If you're on YouTube, you won't have to change. There are 2 notable exceptions. One is in the States, where you will need to go on to Speed Sport 1. Their service is free. So go on to speedsport1.com and learn all about that. That's going to come up on Saturday. And if you're in France, the French commentary will take over on Saturday. And that is all available to you. There's a page on the site www.248-renan.com, which will explain. But I'm sure if you're in France, you'll already know where you are going to be watching to get the French commentary over the weekend. But for most of you, as I say, you won't have to move or change that. Don't touch that dial. In fact, the link that we've got on the radiolemans.com site, if you click on that via the radiolemans.com site, it isn't even a different link. It is a very clever piece of programming by the guys at Nürburgring TV, and well done to them, that basically just refreshes to the next session when it comes up. So it's effectively created a playlist for those of you who know about these things. I'm very impressed by that. So there's no swapping and changing of link, which I like a lot. And so does Tim Gray back in London, because it means he just puts one up and leaves it on the page there. Huge crowds here this evening. Time ticking away. Oh, barely 2 3/4 hours still to go this evening. At the moment, it's Bruce Jones, Peter Snowden and John Hindhaugh in the Global Broadcast Centre. And
just been watching John, Dan Harper in the BMW Junior car, the M4, just had a bit of a slow lap and a bit of traffic, really quite slow for him, so I think he's on a better one there. Raffaele Marcello, though, way quicker, certainly in sector 5, which was it's a long sector there. That is, it's up through Adenauerforst, Metzgersfeld, Kaldenhard, and it looked at that point it's a fairly quick lap from Raffaele. We were talking about him a few minutes ago.
Yeah, but he's improved in each of the sectors he's gone through so far, but most notably in sector 2, where he's got the outright fastest time. But the best time that the number 4 Mercedes from Team Bilstein has got is still, well, it's 4 seconds off the ultimate pace. And that's still in the hands of the number 6 sister Team Bilstein car. Still the time from Arjun Maini. He's going to close in, but he's not going to topple it, I wouldn't have thought. John?
We talked about coming into the pits or going round. Wicker Bill says, silly question. Bill, no silly questions, just questions. Says, how does the timing system cope with just going around the GP circuit instead of the Nordschleife? What stops you cheating and just keep going around the GP track to rack up the laps? Well, first of all, it's only in this qualifying session, and as soon as we're done with qualifying session, excuse me, as soon as the qualifying is done on Friday, those cones disappear and there's no cut through back in from the Grand Prix stretcher back onto the main straight. You can still come back into the pits, but you lose that lap. As it stands at the moment, there is a sensor, a timing loop, if you will, on that cut through. So let's say Mathieu Jaminet has just gone across the line there in the 992 GT3R, the number 6 machine, or the 6th place machine, should I say. And he's just gone through. Let's say he cuts back through. So the timing started now as he gone across the line. He goes through. He's done the. I'm speeding this up a bit. He's come through. He's going down the hill up the other side. Oh, I'm not going on the Hudson back. I'm turning right. There's a sensor there, and it clears his time. And the next time he crosses the start-finish line, whether he's in the pit lane or he's on the straight, the lap starts again. So if he's done 6 laps, it will start the 7th. And then as he comes through again, it'll click back to start the 6th.
Got it.
So Wicker Bill, good question.
Yeah.
Very good question.
Right.
They're clever, these timing people.
Aren't they?
Yeah.
Discreet, quiet, but...
just while we're doing that, Marcello just popped in an 8:15.7, by the way.
So it didn't take him to the top, it only moved him up one position, but it gained him a 1.5 seconds on still the fastest time, still by the sister number 6 Mercedes with Arjun Maini.
And that did rather spoil the 4 German manufacturers in the top 4. Mercedes, Porsche, Audis, BMW is what it was, but Raffaele Marciello in the number 4 Mercedes-AMG Team Bilstein. That's the car that's hand-painted, by the way. If you get to see pictures of that, it's yellow and blue, but the yellow is paint, the black highlights on there, or low lights on there, paint, and so is the stylized blue. It's kind of like almost a cartoon representation. As Manuel Lach in the Hyundai Elantra has
taken the 227 Super round,
which is the Greisman Group Felix von der Laden car. There's a
that's Hatzenbach, isn't it?
It's the bottom of the Hatzenbach. Yeah. What is the collective noun for new Toyota GT4 GR Supers? I'm not sure. So it is Mercedes, Porsche, Audi, Mercedes, BMW, Porsche, Audi, and BMW in your top 10. Best non-German mark, Conrad Motorsports. In 11th in the Lamborghini Huracan, although there's a lot of German technology in that car, of course. And where's the best Ferrari? I thought that had just improved, actually. Have they taken that time away? Maybe not. Last time a non-German manufacturer won here was 2005, I think, from memory. That was Viper. That'd be Zach Speed.
Was it 2003? I'll scroll
2003,
back.
you might be right.
Best Ferrari currently, John, is in 14th. That's a Ficcadelli car that won the last NLS round with Earl Bamber at the wheel of that currently.
2002.
Right.
2 years running for Zach Speed.
1 year out.
I've got the T-shirt from Ken Bruce. Thank you. Greatest hits radio. Loving it. So, still with over 2 hours and 40 minutes to go. Just starting to get into gloaming now. Beautiful light in the sky. It's going to be chilly again tonight. The temperature is dropping all the time.
You were talking about variables earlier, John, of this circuit. That's a bit of a crossover now because that temperature just dropped enough that it's almost, I would say, bordering on ideal, but perhaps not out in some of the woods there. But then the lights start to go as well. So just when you get something back on tyre temperature, you lose a little bit of vision as well. But it's the best part of night racing. What's the best part of a 24-hour race? 2 things. Dark, preferably rain as well. Yes, you heard it.
You left out Schnitzel.
Yeah, what?
Schnitzel. Oh, big moment for the BMW in 94th place. That's the 224 car. That's the 240i.
And the Conrad Lamborghini lost a wheel on the Hatzenbach.
Lost a wheel from the left rear, was that?
Separate incident, I think.
Right rear.
Right rear, okay.
Yeah, right rear, it's come off, and it's I think it's missed the barriers. but that's coming out of Galvenkopf, so it's just...
Okay, so just coming onto the longest straight of the circuit, Pavel left her off 11th fastest at the time. He'd been improving around that lap and is sitting on driver's right, rear end of the car off the track on the grass, wheel further down the grass verge, but fortunately up there. Fortunately, they're not on the track, but there's already a rescue vehicle.
It's almost looking like a hub failure or something, isn't it?
So. Or a wheel failure. What we need to know is it's still fastened on. The BMW, by the way, was one of the Adrenaline Motorsport cars.
I think it was 243 Team Motec. I noted that down. And then 240i, that would tally. So, yes, that is the one it was. Well, there was contact with the Porsche Cayman coming out of Galgenkopf. And the Lamborghini speared across to driver's left. It was on the right-hand side of the track. Then the wheel was separated by hitting the barriers, and then he went round a couple of times. But the Porsche Cayman came into contact or vice versa, trying to get the same piece of tarmac.
Yeah.
The Porsche Cayman carried on, went onto the grass on driver's left. Will need a fair bit of attention, but not as much as the Conrad Lamborghini. Tough luck, guys.
Which hit the barriers quite hard with the rear and went a few feet up into the air, so there's all sorts of potential collateral damage on the back of that Lamborghini. Last thing you're going to need just before in qualifying.
And it was Manuel Busca who's behind the wheel of the Adrenaline BMW that had its problem.
Now, what's interesting?
The car that was involved, by the way, is the SP7 K. Kramer Racing Porsche Cayman GT4 Club Sport, and that is the 184 Karl-Heinz Meyer behind the wheel.
What's really odd there, John, is that the contact there is the left rear on the Lamborghini, which is rotated around, and it's taken the right rear off, hitting the wheel on the barriers.
Yeah, and the right front of the little Porsche is at a very, very odd angle, and it must have been a pretty close thing.
I'm not quite sure how that happened.
With Alessio Picariello following behind in the Falcon Motorsports car, he had to avoid two slowing cars and a tyre.
And two slowing cars that were then separating in front of him, but could easily have come back, and in fact the Lamborghini did straight across his bows. So for Alessio Picariello, who's actually just got off a plane from Thailand, he was racing where I was last weekend. So many of these drivers coming from all around the world.
Sat next to you, did he, on the way home?
Not at the right part
different
of the
class, different class.
Did you not? Oddly.
I waved, but just ignored, frankly.
Yeah.
You know these drivers, you know what they're like.
Two slow zones then at the end of Galgenkopf and onto the Dottinger Höhe. Marshall Post 186 and 188. That's now code 60 at that area. And I've got to say that very lovely teal blue, Conrad Racing Blue and black H&R sponsored number 7 is in a bit of a pickle, also with a problem.
Puncture.
This is the 718 Schmerlis Racing Porsche Cayman SP4T car, and it's Irene Schmerlis at the wheel of the purple and silver machine. It's all happening in the early part of twilight.
You know, but at any point, day or light, wet or dry, if you have a puncture at the Nürburgring, you can get back with simply a puncture. You know, it hasn't led to something else, something smiling on you. So for the team owner of Schmerlis Racing, Yanis Schmerlis, German-based Greek driver, he might have picked up some debris coming onto along the Dottinger from the Lamborghini Porsche Cayman clash, but whatever it was, he should get back without any particular damage to that car, as long as he remembers to do that thing, Peter, that drivers sometimes forget. Back it off, bring it in slowly when you've got a tyre starting to go down.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No,
James.
I don't either. I just said it for the sake of it, but you know.
Witchcraft.
How fast do you go? It doesn't matter. I think you've said this before, Peter. It doesn't matter how slow you think you're going as the driver. It's still too fast.
Exactly. We just had some fabulous aerial shot there for our helicam shot, John, of that Conrad Lamborghini that's stricken on the beginning of the Dottinger Höhe. And I've got to say, for something that's hit the barriers as hard as it has, it doesn't look as second-hand as it should do. I am certain when it gets back to the pits there'll be a lot more to it, but I still can't quite see how that's happened.
I think that's I don't think anybody's at fault.
No,
I think that's the very definition of a racing accident.
Yeah. It was, but both cars had seemingly completed their exit from Galgenkopf with the Lamborghini on the right-hand side of the circuit. They both seemed to be going in a straight line, and they just impinged on each other. The Porsche was fairly much in the middle of the track, but actually, the more I look at it, that was a real bucking bronco of a ride for Pavel Lefterov in the Lamborghini, but also a phenomenal avoidance from
yeah, I mean, I'm no mathematician, but
in behind.
But 2 into 1 doesn't go, clearly.
No.
Indeed.
We were trying to get 3 into 1 there. But,
just again, for those who are asking, sunset here officially on Saturday is 9. Where was that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 9:19. Oh, we'll remember that one. That's a good Porsche number. And sunrise on Sunday is 5:39. So write that down, and I'll work out the hours in a moment. Answers on a postcard, please.
Right, ring the bell, ding ding. Fred Vervish has awoken.
Okay.
He's, his car, the number 1 Audi, one of last year's winning crew, is down in 12th place, but he is starting to fly around the circuit in his R8 LMS GT3 Evo 2. Lots of numbers and letters in there, but the thing from Fred's point of view, he's won this race before, every potential to do it all over again. He'll easily get in the top 10. I think he might get in the top 3 with the time that he's knitting together. But as we can just see, two of the quickest drivers on the track, the Conrad Lamborghini for Pavel Lefterov, and in behind Alessio Becariello, things can go wrong, boom, in the blink of an eye.
They certainly can. It's a phrase you've used a lot, Bruce, on NLS and Nürburgring races. It's what the Nürburgring does. It giveth and it taketh away, and it can be that quick.
Dust.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you get for the TCR? Oh, hang on. Is that a bit of fire underneath the car? There
yes.
is.
Yeah, on the windscreen.
It's coming up through the engine bay now on this 108 TCR Golf.
Flames on the screen.
Flames underneath the car. There's.
Do not open the bonnet.
There's some kind of liquid on fire.
Well, the driver's looking remarkably casual. He's sort of leading into the cockpit. When he walks around the front,
he needs to pull the extinguisher on this car. We've had a lot of incidents tonight. This is the SP3T car, Sharky Racing by MXC Sinzeve.
I don't think he's aware it's on fire, actually, John.
I think he is now. I think you can see flames. You can see flames coming out the back of the bonnet. What is he patting it down with his hand?
They've disappeared from the back there. It's underneath is the issue. He's taking the steering wheel, though.
That's all right. He'll save that. Yeah. Needs to pull the under-bonnet extinguisher from inside. Yeah, it's
now it's alight.
As Joe Bradley
now
would say,
it's alight.
Caught a had. That is already lightly barbecued, and we need the fire truck here rather quickly. It is on the Grand Prix circuit, so that shouldn't be too bad. But that's been burning for quite a long time underneath.
No sense of urgency, though. I don't quite understand why he's not
pull the fire extinguisher.
Exactly, or maybe it has or it's failed, John. But he's not getting to marshals. I'd be running to get a marshal there and get, because that's, if you don't look out, that's going to take hold, and it's not.
He stepped away. That's gone.
That's gone.
The engine bay's gone on that car. This is the 108 Golf. It's bright orange and black, and unfortunately,
definitely bright orange.
It's burning bright orange and black smoke. That is a very serious incident. There is a trail of fluid behind his team.
Finally, a marshal is approaching, carrying a couple of extinguishers. Still has about 50 minutes.
It needs the fire truck. It needs one of the pickup trucks. There's a couple of them around the circuit. A fire extinguisher, a single fire extinguisher is not going to be enough. That engine bay has gone. This is terrible.
If there's that much coming through the bonnet, then what's going on inside?
It's
a catastrophe.
That's burned through.
That's there at last, just as the fire extinguisher is.
It's burned through the carbon bonnet. There's a little explosion in there as more combustible material has taken light, and the heat under there will be extraordinary now, and we still haven't got to that. This is very unusual. 2 VW intervention vehicles are there, an Audi and a VW actually, but that, I'm afraid, has taken a little bit too long. I am not one for criticising the marshals. I'm really not. I have great respect for them. Here's the fire truck. That's what they needed, the Dodge pickup truck. Now that is a full house fire suppression system in the back of that. Now we don't know where that's had to come from. It is somewhat ironically decorated with flames down the side. So they've got the hoses out from that, and also from the back of one of the other vehicles, there's a fire suppression system there with a hose to a tank. So the guys in the pit lane watching on here. So 2 hoses on this now, one from the Dodge Ram pickup and one from the Audi SUV. Driver's going past a little bit too quickly there for my liking. And as soon as they got there, the fire's gone. That's exactly what it needed. Well done. Well done.
Well, John, all we can say is we're going to have to watch, look and listen to see if that gets any chance to run this weekend's race. But that burnt for a good, what are we talking, 3 minutes?
Certainly a couple of minutes there, Bruce, probably a little bit more. It was burning when he pulled over. Something had gone awry underneath. It was burning down towards the right front, alongside or just behind the right front wheel. Now, turbocharged car, 2-litre turbocharged engine, as the 718 finally makes its way to the next entire sponsored car, which is the silver and heather purple, very much in mind of the old Audi UK R8. Sam Lee cars, that livery that we've had here before. So the problem there is twofold. One, you've lost the engine and you've probably done some damage there. 2, all of the wiring and everything else underneath the bonnet is going to be gone. So it will be at least a new bonnet loom and everything else if they can get that cleaned up. Now, it might not have been salvageable even before the fire trucks got there, but that was painful to watch for the team quite clearly. Still 2.5 hours to go.
A lot of the teams have decided, right, with the waved yellow flag, still with the Lamborghini stricken at the start of the Dottinger Her, no quick times are coming in. We're getting great sector times, including, we were mentioning just before the flame out for the Golf, that Fred Vervies was winding it up. At the end of the lap, he had to wind it back, but certainly lots of potential for that number 1 Audi. So look out for that. But right now, a lot of the crews, I think they're just taking it as an opportunity to bed in the next driver, get them into the cockpit, and get them out. But it's been a long burnout from the VW Golf. Coming down the hill, it was going all on the approach, the final descent into the Dunlop Carer, the hairpin at the bottom of the hill. There's a concrete apron right at the edge of the circuit just before the turning point, which is where the 108 Golf for MSC Sinzig stopped. But then it just seemed to take forever and a day. So he did the right thing, pulled off the circuit as soon as he could, didn't go on the grass, but the scenes that followed with a little lick of flame becoming a very large expanse of flame covering the whole bonnet, it just was hideous to watch. That has burned through the carbon fibre reinforced plastic bonnet of that car, and that's heat. That's a lot of heat under there.
There's a trail of smoke as it came to a halt from the edge bay, so it's as if it's an oil line, a turbo or something's burned. I think probably a catastrophic engine failure on that is what else it's led to. Of course, once you open the bonnet, you feed it oxygen.
Exactly.
You've got to put the worst thing out. You've got to put the most of it out to start with, then open the bonnet, because otherwise it's just smouldering away inside as well. So a lot of work, great work by the marshals when they got to it there.
The problem is there's a lot of heat underneath the bonnet of those turbocharged cars. There's a lot of hot components, and pretty much all of the fluids except for the cooling fluids that are underneath the bonnet. So brake fluid, oil, petrol are all flammable, and brake fluid, people don't realise how flammable brake fluid is. It's a horrible thing to go up. Then you've got, if you have a tiny little cut in a fuel line and it's maybe only leaking out a little bit of vapour, well, that won't matter. No, vapour's worse than petrol. Vapour is worse. Sometimes you can put don't try this at home, by the way, but I've seen the scientific experiment where people have poured fuel onto a match and it's put the match out. Yeah. But if you open a jar, you shake a jar, open the jar and let the vapour come out, it will burn very quickly because you've oxygenated the fuel. Just extraordinary to see that. Hot engine, fluid, whoosh. Absolutely. Let's wish those guys well.
Main thing a fire needs, oxygen.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Just going back to qualifying. 2 qualifying sessions tomorrow. We have already set the bulk of the final qualifying session, the shootout, if you will, So, in terms of how many people advance from Q1 to Q2 tomorrow, there will be 5. Well, let me put this the other way. 13 are already in, plus a Pro-Am, and to come then, 5 SP9 Pro or Pro-Ams and an SP9 Pro-Am. So that is 13, 19. 19 to go. This is a movable number that is decided in the final analysis by how many people are in the classes. And there's a bit of a sliding scale. I'm not even going to go into that now. It could be SPXs as well, as Johnny says from the back of the box. So 13 are already in to final qualifying. So in Q1, there are effectively 6 places up for grabs, one of which has to be an SP9 Pro-Am. The others could be anybody, whoever gets the times. But I tell you what, you look at the cars that aren't in, and there's got to be a dozen at least cars for those 5 spots for potentially for the top class. Quite extraordinary.
Now, of course, what we have now is a time at which no one can set a fast lap. So valuable lap times at the moment when there's still light in the sky. Air temperature's only dropped 2 degrees, only let down to 11 degrees since the start of the session. It's very easy to take a fumble here. Yes, a lot of people go, it's before a 24-hour race, does it really matter? But it sort of does. But it's going to be quite a long delay. There is still the Lamborghini stricken sideways across the white line on the right-hand side of the circuit on the exit of Galgenkopf. It's a slow clear-up, but a flatbed at least is there now.
That suggests to me 2 things. One, it's obviously it's not going to roll because it's missing a wheel. But also it suggests to me there's some further damage there. That needs a lift. Fortunately now on GT3 cars the world over, there are lifting points that are attached to the FIA approved roll cage, and it spreads the load. And each of them are in slightly different places depending on which car it is.
Yeah.
So it balances, and it's the point load is perfect. And there's 2 fastening hooks on the top. All of the recovery vehicles at the circuits where GT3s race, there's a bar that goes on to the end of the hydraulic arm that fastens on to the hook, effectively a bar with 2 more fixings, and then they can lift it up and guide it gently. It's the same with the with all of the cars actually in the WEC, and that is to make recovery a little bit easier. But they've had to get a flatbed there in order to get that done. Guard of honour for a motorcycle or a motor scooter. That's one of the members of the press around the circuit. So at RSL_studio, if you like, Yoda's Uncle Shane is a member of the Orange Army in the UK for over 20 years, time and time again, when I've attended Cars on Fire. And after it's been put up, I've asked the driver, why didn't you pull the onboard fire extinguisher? Answer's always the same. It'll cost me a fortune to replace that.
Staggering. Not cheap to come to an event like this, but let's say 50 quid.
A bit more than that, I think, for the onboard.
I know,
now, but yes,
very old-fashioned.
Yes.
Turn of phrase.
Two things that you learn very quickly if you ever get caught out by it. Find out where reverse is and how to get to it on a race car, and make sure the pin's being pulled out on your fire extinguisher before you go out. You learn those things very quickly. Kevin Estre with a bit of a clear track, but of course he won't get a clear run through Galgenkopf, but he's fantastic up by Mudkurv at the moment, climbing the hill towards the right-hander before he rises up to Caracciola Carousel, staying off the curbs there. You really have to. It's like a small garden wall rather than a curb. Catches one of the Aston Martins there. It's that 68 car, I think it was.
SP10, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
SP10 car up to the carousel, aim for the end of the AMG hoarding, and then turn it in. It's that bumpiest right through there. Back on the throttle, climbing up through here. There's another car stranded by the side of the road there.
I think
that Elantra.
Was it what?
Was it Elantra?
It looked,
might be
BMW, but we'll get a better look. But the light is dropping remarkably fast. We've had this sort of golden evening, but it's falling. But Kevin Estre doesn't notice these things because he's got his eyes and his brain on a corner several twists ahead, and Oh, good news is the Lamborghini now appears to be up on the flatbed, so hopefully it won't be too long until that is finally cleared at Galdenkopf.
We have got a penalty for the number 65 VW Scirocco, disobeying flag signals, and will get a 5-position drop on the grid. Marshall's now switching from flag signals to reflective boards because of the twilight. And news from the BMW M4 GT3 team boss, Henry Valkenhorst, says he's been asked why he's at the start in both GT3 and GT4 from his own team. He says, when you have the most beautiful track ahead of you at your doorstep, then you should use it as much as possible.
Well said, well said.
Totally.
Just going back to your reverse gear thing, John.
Yeah.
Why does a GT3 and another? Why does a GT3 racing car that's only going to go forward on the racetrack and operating? Why does it have a reverse gear?
Because it has to, by law.
Exactly, homologated.
Yeah.
It's based on a road car.
Yeah.
People ask, why does it need a reverse gear? Because they have to. I've driven a certain car, which will remain nameless, where
You can tell us.
it's had a reverse gear,
Yeah.
but you were advised never
Not
to
to
use
use it.
Yes.
Because it was so fragile that if you'd gone into it, it probably would have smashed
It was there for
into many
scrutineering purposes.
Yes, exactly.
That's all. Yes.
There are some cars, actually, radicals, that have sequential boxes. You've got to be really, really careful. If you spin the car, you've got to dip the clutch straight away because it doesn't like going backwards.
Well, just thinking that way, we just looked the onboard footage there of it's Kevin Estre, isn't it, in the Grello. You talk about the carousel. You say where?
Right, so I've now identified that car, by the way. It's the number 82, the Asian driver crew car, He Wong and Yang, in the GT4 BMW Evo 2021. That's at post 144. That's the blue car, just out of the carousel.
Yeah, I was just going back to the Kevin Estre thing. You were describing it going into the carousel, but one thing you can hear the transmission working there, the loading on that system going through there as it's hovering on the throttle, balance throttle through the carousel, then picks up again, and it does this for 24 hours.
Now, the key thing is where they've just removed the Lamborghini from, there was still a slow zone. And Kevin Estre, it must have felt like an eternity going down the Dottinger, and then finally, halfway along, he was suddenly clear of the zone and could pick up. So expect no quick times for some while, because even now, right now, is the instance in which he's finally overtaken the flatbed, which just as he starts to complete the end of the lap, the kink to the left, under the bridge, into the compression, up the rise to the final sequence of corners. But knowing Kevin, that would have just cheered him up all the more so he can attack on the next lap, because it should be fully clear. Mind you, we haven't seen the circumstances on the approach to Dunlop Carer,
No.
if that Golf has been dragged clear of there at the moment. So almost the opposite ends of the circuit, you've got things being cleared up.
On the subject of every day's a school day, I did not know this, Wick the Bill. All of our marshals are chipping in here. Thanks, guys. Fire extinguisher rule number 3. Make sure you stand upwind when putting out a fire. Dry powder, in particular, works amazingly well as a laxative. I did not know that.
Yeah, but that's like that's like milking a cow. Whoever worked out, that's what you did.
Yes, exactly right. What I want to know is what's rules 1 and 2.
You were right, actually, Bruce. That was the BMW that we saw.
It's Andy Yan at the wheel as that's being towed back in again, but just showing crews from all around the world come to play in this fabulous race. And for Andy Yan, hopefully it's something that can be fixed on the 82 BMW from sponsored by Gitti Tyres, run by WS
GT.
Racing. What'd you say?
GT,
of course. Why did I say Gitti? I must be very tired.
That's how it's spelled, but that's fine.
No, but I've got it right before. That's the thing. I'm lapsing into lunacy.
So basically what it's saying is Jones is inconsistent.
We haven't actually done the add-up yet of how many different tyre companies there are here. We've had double figures before,
which is something I think we often overlook on this series again at the Nürburgring. So many series have a control tyre, one make. Again, it's here. It's whatever suits your car.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, totally. And fair play to the organisers for making that happen. We were talking about, in particular, Corvette racing and their potential. I am informed by Sportscar 365. Hello all. Busy weekend for John de Geese and the team this weekend. It's David here this weekend, wasn't it, that we saw David down in the pit lane? that there is a delegation of Corvette racing personnel on site this weekend, presumably testing the Schnitzel.
On a fact-finding mission.
A fact-finding mission is exactly how it is being described, Peter. You are absolutely correct.
Does happen occasionally.
They go about their racing in a way that is extremely exacting. When you've got people like Pratt & Miller involved, and you've got a global brand, and Corvette is, of course, a global brand. One of the few global brands that is truly that in terms of sports car. Obviously, you've got Porsche, but in terms of GM, it's one of their global cars. And with the new C8 now establishing itself and available with the steering wheel on the right-hand side, one should not forget, for Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Africa, and the United Kingdom, it has just further enhanced the reputation of America's sports car. Now, that used to annoy Doug Feeham, who was the team manager of Corvette racing in the LMS and the American Le Mans series and IMSA. He said, it's not just America's sports car, Hindhoff, it's the world's sports car. But he did accede it was a blue-collar sports car.
Now this is more of a reflection on me, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I still can't get my head around a Corvette being mid-engined.
But do you know?
Not saying it's wrong, it's just I just can't get my head around it.
But did you know, right at the beginning, it was always meant to be mid-engined? It's design Azora. The original car was called Azora after the.
So what did they do? Put the plans around the wrong way and just built it front-engined?
They didn't think it would sell in America as it was, so
Probably
they re-engineered it and decided with those thrumming V8s. Coming around to official sunset in around time, and it'll be the same, roughly the same, give or take, come Saturday. From what did I say? I think I said 19 down and 5:27 up. Yeah, 5:39 up. So something in the region of 8 hours and 20 minutes of darkness. Nowhere near our longest darkness of the races we've covered. It was to the minute identical this year. Just over 13 hours and 19 minutes, I think, at Dubai and at the Rolex 24 of Daytona. I'm sure that's happened before. Vagaries of these things in different parts of the world. Tim Heinemann now behind the wheel of the number 44. This is the Falcon Tyres Porsche. There's another classic livery for you. The lighter blue, teal blue at the front and the royal blue at the back. Not going to get a hugely quick time. We've got a slow zone still at Hohe Acht. He's down to Brunchen now. The crowd building steadily this week, but already pretty impressive. The 44 car is the one with the red wing mirrors, door mirrors, excuse me, on that car. And they are blue on the 33.
It does still amuse me and slightly upset me that you come to races where you've got a team entering two cars, and still some teams are remarkably resistant to giving the commentator anything to differentiate. You know, door mirror is about the smallest example of what you can get, but when they say there's a little line around the air intake, really? And that's going to work in the 24-hour race, running in the dark, isn't it? That's going to help.
Well, I play.
Somebody's tired.
Tired and grumpy already, Mr. Jones.
You've heard nothing yet.
He's peaked early.
Wait until Le Mans, and the three Porsche 963s are all in the rainbow colours, and the only differentiator is the fin on the back, one black, one blue, and one white, which is fine.
There's a song in there.
If they're reversing.
Which is fine if you can see them side on. So I feel from all of the commentary teams covering that around the world in whatever language, there will be quite a lot of, well, it's one of the Porsche Penske Motorsport.
Bear with, it's gone past, right? It was the
the
blue one. No good.
Yeah, 5, 6 or 75. Hang on, we'll get back to you on that.
Just said those the cones on the pit straight there to stop you going into the pit entrance as you do normally during the test, as you can do from tomorrow. Somebody somehow's caught one and fired it into the middle of the track, but it's still standing upright as well. So a couple of cars are having to just jink round it. Brave is the marshal that goes out to remove that.
So no code 60s, no slow zones. So if you are out on the track now, chance to improve your time if you've got life in the tyres. How do the classes work in the N24? Basically, they are split between GT cars and what's called touring cars. So you'll have the SP9s, they're the special cars, but they're effectively GT3s. Engine size, front and rear wheel drive, turbo and non-turbo. There are 20 different classes here at this weekend. We've had more in the past. Could the Le Mans NASCAR turn up and race in the 24? Would it fit into a class? No, it wouldn't.
They'd make one for it.
But I am absolutely certain SPX is the catch-all. The GT2s aren't actually homologated here for this. There's no data for them. So to stop them, you couldn't put them in with another class because, perhaps it wouldn't be quite fair on one or the other. So they are in SPX, which is experimental, is what the X stands for. And that's exactly what the Garage 56 Camaro is running in at Le Mans. It's running in an experimental class. It is not classified. It will not be classified. It does not run to any category. It is an opportunity to see that car in a different area and an area of expertise. Interesting, they're rather disappointed that tyre warmers have been reinstigated for Le Mans because they felt that was an area that they had an advantage with their Goodyear tyres, and they felt that particularly early in the stint they would be right up there with the GT cars, and they're not going to use tyre warmers at Le Mans. They'll continue not to use them, and they feel that gives them a slight disadvantage. But they're not in competition. They want to get to the end of the race.
Well, rules are always going to apply. You're going to have different teams going to have different ideas on rules.
Of course they are.
Talking of seeing cars there, John, there's one here that's going to warm the cockles of our colleague Bruce Jones's heart here. This is number 27 Apt Sportline Lamborghini Huracan with Kelvin van der Linde, no less, at the wheel at the moment. Good lineup in that car as well. Jordan Pepper in there and Nicky Thiem in that car. But it's a black car with fluorescent green canards on it, so you've no chance of missing that.
You're quite right.
You like that one?
Well done to the Apt Sports team. But
they got the memo.
They did get the memo, but having run for years in DTM, running in Formula E, they are very aware of how to present a car. But again, that gets a tick in my box because it's not yet dark. But the sun went down behind the forest about a handful of minutes ago, about 10 minutes ago now. But it's falling dark quickly.
Apt, of course, have been for quite some time before this project associated with Audi. However, the driveline on that car, Peter, they are very familiar with because the engine and the gearbox have Audi 4 rings on them.
Yes,
they do.
I know.
If you go underneath a Lamborghini Urus, you'll see an awful lot, a road car, you'll see an awful lot of 4 rings on them. They share the engine, they share the gearbox on this Huracan, and therefore it's not fair to say that it's just an R8 with a different body. That's absolutely not fair to say that. There's an awful lot of differences. But the engine and gearbox, that lovely V10 engine, Lamborghini's V10 engine that Audi took on board a few years ago and improved and made more efficient.
And more importantly, made more reliable.
Yes.
And more powerful. And more everything. And non-turbocharged, of course, still normally aspirated. Down at Bergwerk, a little bit of traffic for Kelvin van der Linde. And that was one of the BMWs.
One of the things that always appeals is this moment where we've gone from daylight, which was glorious, and sunset. We're now going into darkness. It's forming quickly. And Kelvin van der Linde, just coming out of the carousel, suddenly finds a waft of smoke going across the track. No one's crashed. It's just the barbecues being fired up. And it's that very essence. Snowy and I were talking about this earlier today. we went past some cut grass, and I went, Jackie Stewart will be saying someone spun over the brow, and the heightened senses of a racing driver. But how much does it put you off when you smell those verse being cooked?
I remember Justin Bell saying to me at Le Mans, it was one of the things that he knew he counted through the race, and particularly coming into that really tricky part in the early morning, he could smell, particularly with the large British presence that there is at Le Mans, you can smell bacon frying. It's a very distinctive smell, even on a barbecue. And he knew then that, you know, he was coming. He always took that stint from darkness into daylight. We see a lot of people make mistakes then, and when he could smell that, he knew without being told on the radio. And this was a few years ago. Let's not forget he won in class in the rent-a-car Viper. That his stint was coming to an end, and he could count that. It's amazing what racing drivers use to get them through, Snowy.
Well, yeah, we won't go there. But
in terms of
yes,
their senses.
No, I know.
Hang on, the next sound you hear is me hitting Snowy with my notes.
But I can remember, my first ever 24-hour was on this place. So if you're going to do a 24-hour race, yeah, start here.
Wow.
And I can remember all those things you said, the bacon and eggs and all the, you know, the burgers and stuff and whatever, bratwurst. But the one that got me was on a stint for midnight to about 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was. It wasn't food frying. It wasn't bacon or eggs or whatever. It was a very sweet smell in the air.
I hear what you're saying.
And it was like, oh, that's interesting. So we know who's partying at that corner, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
The fans are enjoying themselves. That's fine.
That's good.
Yeah.
They're out in the open air.
Exactly.
Enjoying themselves. The sweet smell of success. You're listening to and watching live coverage from qualifying here at the 51st running of the ADAC TotalEnergies 24 Hours of the Nürburgring 2023. Peter Snowden, John Hindhoff and Bruce Jones in the booth. And we'll be taking our leave at the moment to...
Never mind taking leave. Max Hoffer there, just having to go around a back market on the end of the Hatzenbach, taking a bit of curb and a bit of grass, and nearly a bit of grass tracking there on the way to qualifying. But Dries van Tor right behind, getting a windscreen.
Trying to follow him.
Well, of course you do. He's a racing driver.
Hang on.
He's just made a gap, so of course you're going to try and use it.
I've just watched a car in front,
Hobbs,
passing another car, but having to go half the width of the car onto the grass. Oh, well, that's fine then. I'll just follow him through.
Well, if he can, I will. It's obvious.
Every second counts in qualifying, right?
The beast of the green hell, the Get Speed AMG, is coming out of the track. If you get a chance, this is too early for this, really. It's just coming out of its garage onto the pit lane. This is a phenomenal paint job. There's an awful lot of lovely liveries this year, and that's one of them. It has a very green livery, as you might expect, but there's various parts of the green hell that are depicted around the car. It's beautifully done, absolutely beautifully done, and it's got a heck of a lineup as well in that car. Spoke to them yesterday for our midweek motorsport show. That's available, by the way, for download. Go to radiolemans.com. It's Series 18, Episode 18, and the first half of the 2-hour show was Peter and I wandering down the paddock, and Mauro Engel, Daniel Junqueira and Jules Gunon were in good form, very good form, very relaxed, making jokes between themselves and to us. That tells me a lot about where they are in their mind, even at this early part of the week, Bruce.
John, you look over the last 5, maybe 7 years in GT3 racing, there's literally not a top race that any of that trio has not won, a championship at which they have not won. And Danny Junqueira came through at the end of last year to win the Intercontinental GT Challenge title. They're on great form. Their race form so far this year has all been really, really super strong. But that green car number 3, it looks fantastic, as you say, up close, but it also works when moving around at speed around the circuit. Sometimes you get these art cars that are fabulous if they're in the pit lane, but you can't really make them out at full flow. But this green one, car number 3 from Team Get Speed, a team that just gets stronger and stronger. Now Mercedes is sort of helping it all the more. You know, they really have just got to have the very best chance here. The black Lamborghini, car number 27, we talked about that from Ab Sportsline, didn't complete its lap at full racing speed because that's been brought in by Kelvin van der Linde, someone else about to have a go. But
I think it's Nicky Team just gone it, I think.
That's a heck of a team, isn't it?
Oh, isn't it?
No, it was Van der Linde. Who was it?
Yeah, it's come out. I think Nicky Team's gone in.
He's gone in. Yeah, well, they can't keep him out.
Yeah,
can they?
Mapelli and Jordan Pepper in that car. I mean, that's a really average lineup, isn't it?
Kelvin van der Linde, Marco Mapelli, Jordan Pepper, and Nicky Team jumping into that car as well. Stout, I would say, and I don't mean that in their build.
Yes.
That is a solid lineup in every way, shape or form.
You didn't mean Guinness, did you?
No.
Other brands are available.
Well, yeah, Gillespie's for one. I launched that back in the day. The weak link in that car, I see none, Bruce.
None whatsoever. What one has to understand is 10 years ago, some of these drivers might have a works drive or whatever. They would probably only do 10 races in a season. But the sheer amount of racing they can do, they'll be week in, week out now. But when they keep achieving top podium results, wins and things, you know they're rock solid. But also any team that has Nicky Team on board is going to be a team that has to have humour and character. And that is one of those many ingredients in a 24-hour race that propels you forward. But the thing that really strikes me about two of the drivers in that car, Kelvin van der Linde, Jordan Pepper, South African racers. The South African racing scene is still waiting to get back up to strength. Every now and again they get through. But along with Kelvin's brother Sheldon, they came up here having raced in a VW series in South Africa, came to Germany, shone in the Sirocco Cup, and they've just used that as their springboard. Those of us in Europe find it very easy to find a racing championship to go in which you can show your wares, but they have managed to make it work. But they did the hard yards, moving abroad, away from the comforts of being in South Africa. And as you know, John, life in South Africa brings fabulous food, wonderful weather, brilliant wine. That's very hard to leave behind to come up and live in a little apartment here in, a grim winter turning into spring. It's a hard move, but they've made it work.
Yeah, and fair play to all the people who helped them down the way. So cutting through actually to start another lap. So that's putting heat into the tyres for Nicky Team. He's come through the old Coca-Cola curve, through the red and white tyre bales, and now he's on the start-finish straight. I reckon we'll see him working his tyres. It's Jordan Pepper in the car, excuse me.
Jordan Pepper, okay.
For Abt Sportline, for, listed as living in Bromley now in the UK. Unless I've completely misread that in the semi-darkness in here.
It's not Brunei, is it?
Might be all the right letters.
Brunei's not very handy for Brands Hatch.
No.
It probably is.
The turbos glowing underneath the rear deck of that Lamborghini Huracan, and the exhaust pipes as well. This is the time of night when the cars seem to take on a different persona. They
come alive.
This always sound great, they always look good, but they almost look like mythical beasts at this time of night, with the headlights, with the neon strips, by the way, have transformed darkness endurance racing. But then you get all the components, Bruce, that are glowing away in the semi-darkness or the darkness.
You make a very valid point there. Sorry, you were asking Bruce, but you make a very valid point there, John. Sorry, of lights and how different they are nowadays. They're just like daylight switches now. But I can remember when I first did 24-hour races, it was you drove on wet candles. It was nothing like they've got now. It's unbelievable.
Have you ever driven with LED light bars on a racing car?
No, not yet.
One of the first times I drove in the dark was at Anglesey, and it's very dark at Anglesey when it's dark. And I thought our car had decent headlights, and I forgot to put the light bars on. And so I'm driving around, and I saw somebody else and I thought, I won't bother, I'll just leave all 4 headlights on. I'll give it a try. Oh my God, It was like daylight. They were quite low, and they spread straight out of and it was basically like one of those old video games where you turned off all the extraneous detail because the computer processor wasn't enough to sharpen up the track, and then you turned the contrast up as much as you could. That's exactly what it was like.
Well, you just saw it on the Abt Lamborghini there with that aerial shot. We could see it. You've got the one light bar in the middle lighting up the front of the track in front of you. On the sides, they're turned obliquely out to highlight all the apexes, of which there's quite a few around here.
Just a bit.
Certainly are. Just going back, if people are listening or watching Anglesey Circuit. It might not be on your radar. It's up in North Wales, in this Mon, it's the Welsh name for Anglesey. It's on a hilltop, but if you get it wrong because your headlights aren't working, you can go for a splash in the sea beyond. I know you might have to negotiate a few things, but it's very
That's
exposed.
called dipping your headlights.
Very
Right.
good.
5 minutes, sin bin. Face the corner.
Exactly. On the naughty step again.
The big Nürburgring brazier is back.
There's not the golf this time.
No, it's not. There'll be a lot of people trying to keep warm this evening. The temperature will drop very, very quickly. It stayed clear this evening. In fact, if anything, it's even clearer than it was this afternoon. And the huge crowd here. It's going to be a monster club crowd by the weekend. Ascension Day today is a holiday here in Germany. A lot of people have taken parts of the week off. We were talking earlier on about the queues for the campsite on Sunday to get in as early as possible on Monday morning. No allocated camping spots in most of the public camping here, so the earlier you are, the closer to where you want to be in terms of your pitch. And I can't remember which one of the drivers were telling me they'd had a ride around, and he reckoned that even yesterday the front 2 rows of trackside camping all around the circuit were already taken up, and that was yesterday. It's going to be monster this weekend. With what have we got left to go? Just under 2 hours. It's still Mercedes-Benz Team Bilstein, the AMG Team Bilstein, just pitting for the number 6 car, the number 911 Manthey. Thomas Preining is out in that car at the moment, has nipped into second. Mercedes and Porsche from Audi in third. That's the Sherisport PHX, the old Phoenix team car, and the number 16. Phil Ellis is out in the number 4, the hand-painted Team Bilstein Mercedes-AMG. 2.5 seconds separating those cars. It's not all just about the cars at the front of the field, of course, because we have got classes, and that's 20 of them, and we will be splitting those up for our hourly updates. That didn't do what I was expecting it to do, so we'll try and keep you up to date with those as well. The latest quotes coming in from the pit lane from Volker Strycek in the Manta. We're still doing some fine-tuning and some setup work. All drivers are qualified. That's the most important thing. Now we're going to continue optimising everything. It's fun to be with this car back on track. Kevin Estre from the 911 Manthey Porsche, number 911. There was a lot going on, much more than in the first qualifying session. Lots of 60s and 120s, but we've made a good step forward in terms of balance. We still have to qualify for top qualifying. Let me just say that again, by the way. Kevin Estre reminding us that Manthey are not yet in top qualifying. Who had that on their bingo card? If you'd written that in, you've done well. And Philip Eng from the number 99 Farfus, Augusta Farfus car with Conor De Filippi and Nick Yellerly. Philip said the Nordschleife is a magic place. We have the best job in the world. Sorry, I was having a translation stop there. I've never seen it so crowded here. It's brilliant when the sun is slowly setting. And finally, Franz Conrad, about that problem earlier on for the Lamborghini number 7. We still have to finish analysing everything. It doesn't look too bad. The chassis has survived small injuries on the jacking system, and I think we can set that up and possibly even get the car back out tonight.
Whoa.
Wow, because I did say it looked remarkably unscathed, but I hoped that was the case, but there's usually collateral on it. So great news from Franz Conrad, and to get that car back out tonight is a minor miracle.
Oh. Well, let's see if it happens, but just to remind people, it was the back end of the car was a good 2 feet off the ground when it went over the curb on the left-hand side of the track at the exit at Galgenkopf, and then clearly had a lucky hit against the barrier, and then hit the barrier on the other side of the track as well. Plus, the contact with the Porsche Cayman earlier on. So lucky. Sometimes you're lucky with the bounce. You might ask, why are we not getting quicker times? The temperatures are falling, there's more rubber down on the track, but it's not long since we had the 2 slow zones, the one at Galdenkopf and the one down on the approach to Dunlop Kera, where unfortunately that VW Golf became a barbecue. Has meant they haven't been able to get their teeth in. A lot of the crews brought their drivers in and changed over. We just saw Kelvin van der Linde handing over that AB Sportline Lamborghini to Jordan Pepper, wasn't it? South African. But
so
I think the quick times are going to start coming in now.
Yeah, we haven't had a clear sort of representative lap yet, have we, from the top runners?
We've got a couple of yellow flags, one at X-Müller on the Nordschleife, Marshall Sports 118, and 25A is the Grand Prix circuit down at the bottom of the hill at the hairpin at Dunlop. At the bottom of the hill. That's where we'll be having our Falcon Drift show tomorrow evening. And I'm delighted to say Becky's going to be back in the booth with us to talk you through that. We'll have that in sound and vision for you. Full coverage, live, free, no blocks, no breaks, across the world from now all the way up to the race start on Saturday. There are only a couple of places that we're aware of that have geo-blocks. One is North America, but worry not, because you can still have our commentary and the pictures via speedsport1.com, and that is a free service. In France, that'll switch to a French language service on Saturday for the race. By the way, just noticed on the Hyundais, the Works Hyundais, that they are honouring Craig Breen, by the way, on the back of that car for Craig, on the back of that. They were so classy on the first rally back. Took Craig's car to the rally and set it up exactly as they would have had he been competing. There's a bit of dust in the eye when I saw that one, definitely. Well, Bruce, we're going to let you step away for a moment, and before you go, and we trade you for young Johnny Palmer, your first impressions of what you've seen for this 2023 ADAC Total Energy 24 Hours of the Nürburgring.
Absolutely loving it, of course. Tick that one. Fully aware how a qualifying run can be. It's a 3.5-hour session, how it can be hampered by slow zones and elements off the track. And I'll follow Wickerbill's advice. Genuine question from Wickerbill, he's always on his toes. Would like the Coca-Cola truck, would it fit into SPX? You know, just to give Bruce Joe Racer 11 something to really spot. So I'm going to go out and look at the cars and work out what they look like in the dark right now.
Sounds good to me.
It's been great fun.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. Johnny Palmer will step into the far right-hand seat here in the Global Broadcast Centre. Thomas Preining, second place for Manthey at the moment, and putting in a personal best set of times early on in the lap, but he hasn't been able to keep that up on the Nordschleife as he's climbing. Oh my goodness me, it is so quick. Is it better in the dark, Snowy? Are there less distractions in the dark, perhaps?
Yeah, perhaps in one way of looking at it, from my perspective, from when I drove and did this course, yes, it always appealed. The dark, it's cooler, it's cleaner, there's less stress. But I just liked it. The dark always sorts out men from the boys, they say. It's an old-fashioned phrase, I know, but
oh, wow.
you know what I mean. But and hence just add rain as well. It's even more fun.
Lamborghini in a state of déshabillé.
It's the Conrad car being repaired. Yeah.
Undress, and Franz, as ever, hands-on.
Yeah, exactly.
He is the ultimate hands-on team chief, hell of a driver in his own right.
I'm just going to say, and also quite a handy driver. So hands-on and a handy driver, no pun intended. It's,
the result of a very strange accident coming onto the Dottinger Höhe, contact with the adrenaline Porsche Cayman GT4, and the more times I see that from Alessio Picciarello's car, who were following behind, it's so difficult. Maybe there was a tiny move to the left by the
John,
GT4, but it's small margin.
John, you summed it up earlier at the time, and I'd stand by what you said. It's the very definition of a racing incident.
Right.
Nobody's done anything deliberately. It's just one of those things. What I found amazing for Alessio Piccarello was not only avoiding the spinning Lamborghini and a Porsche, but there was also a wheel bouncing on the track towards him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's three things to avoid. And as Bruce said, the cars then diverged and he had to find his way through.
I tell you what, Franz was absolutely right, because with the bodywork off, you can see most of the chassis of that car and all the subframes, and they look pretty straight. I'll tell you another thing, it isn't coming back in the next 1 hour and 45 minutes, but they may at least get it fixed tonight and not have to pull an all-nighter.
I wouldn't be surprised if that car was out and went and did an installation lap for this session.
Right.
Just say it's done it at night, drive it round.
Johnny Palmer joins us for the first time. JP, how are you?
I'm very, very happy indeed. This is like my natural habitat of happiness. I'm like a kid in a sweet shop. And it gets even better when it goes dark, as you guys have just been saying, because the complexion of the event, of all of the cars taking part of the pit lane just becomes its own explosion of colour and excitement at this time of night as well. It's great. I just never get tired of this event.
And we're coming into that area now where there's no reason, Johnny, why the time shouldn't be getting quicker. You look at it and think, well, yes, it is dark, but the track doesn't move, does it? And once you've convinced yourself of that, there's an element of muscle memory here of seeing, right, I know where I am on the track now, and I know that after this right-hander, there's a left-hander, and I should be in third gear for that, and after that comes so-and-so, and after that comes so-and-so. So, really, there's no reason why you shouldn't get quicker, particularly as the engines tend to like the cooler air.
I think the really quick guys, and the thing is, there are tens of those here as traditional in this event. You're right, they've done so many laps here that kind of nothing phases them now. They were letting off some fireworks in the middle of the Caracciola Carousel, I noticed, about 15 minutes ago, and I thought, oh, that's going to be...
What the drivers were? The really good drivers.
Yeah, really, yeah, exactly. They're so excited they were. And they were so relaxed in knowing where the track went next, they got out the cartwheels.
Oh, I really like the idea of having Roman candles on the back of the cars, firing things up as it going along. Like
going proper Mario Kart.
Yeah,
well, why not?
Absolutely.
There's got to be more levels that we can reach yet. No, I actually meant the fans.
Yeah.
I understand. I hadn't fully explained because I'm too excited. And I thought that's quite distracting, surely, for a lot of the drivers going through that part of the track. But I honestly don't think, if you've been coming here for five years or so, you're just used to, you were talking about barbecues earlier on, campfires, then fireworks, then quite a bit of ambient light around the Grand Prix Strecke as a whole. Then you plunge back into darkness around the Hats and back, and you have to take all of this in your stride. We've also got the important transition stints, which is, you know, daylight into darkness during the race, darkness into daylight, and the issue of the sunlight blinding you during those periods as well. And that's where it's important to work out who's going to be doing which stints and to make sure that those people are comfortable in the cars at the time.
Got some quotes coming in from the Fricatelli Ferrari. David Pittard saying, driving here at night is just amazing. I had forgotten how amazing, sorry, dropping the INGs there. I had forgotten how cool it is to see all of the people around the circuit. We've prepared well over the past races. We're currently making the final adjustments to for the current conditions. We've also got the BMW 330i number 330, which from memory I think is the AT, one of the AT cars, the bio cars, stuck at the edge of the Goodyear curve. And here's more mistakes, this time from the number 73 BMW M4. That's the journalist car. Now I'm not sure who was in it at the time. That's just updated again. I must have run from Denver. They have to start in the pits from the beginning of the race, and they were too fast under code 60 and a 2-minute penalty as well. So that's quite a sanction. We have got a couple of cars that aren't here due to infractions in the NLS. One of those being the 85 CP Racing AMG. One of their drivers lost their ring permit, and I think from memory as well it was the number 60 as well that dropped off the entry list again. One of their drivers lost their ring permit, and therefore the team scratched the car. Also, Bernd Albrecht has said, we're waiting till it gets really dark. 2 more drivers going out in our 991 GT3 Cup car, number 13, to check out the driving lights. Good evening to Peter Mackay. Here's a question for you then, and I like this. Does perfecting the setup on the Manta include tuning the length and the angle of the foxtail?
I would think
Flapper dynamics, I'm being told that's called.
I would think it would, but it might break the regulation for movable aerodynamic devices, though.
Good.
So you don't want to get scrutineering to hit you on that. Now, something that's just caught my eye just before I came into the Global Broadcast Centre here. Was an update on the virtual notice board, which goes out to all the teams and media, etc. There has been a balance of performance adjustment announced about 22 minutes ago. So it won't,
in this session?
In the session.
We're right ahead of this.
It won't take effect until the next session.
Right.
And luckily, for us explaining it at least, it affects one car. Now.
Yes, which car?
The Porsche 911 GT3R has been given the following adjustments. There are 4 adjustments to go through. Start with the first one. It's had 20 kilograms added.
What?
Which is, a lot, because that affects braking, it affects tyre wear, it affects acceleration, it affects change of direction, everything. 20 kilograms is a lot. However, on the contrast, it has 2 restrictors on the engine which limit power. The wider they are, the more power the engine has. The tighter they are, the less power it has. Both of those restrictors have had 1 millimetre wider. So it will be breathing. Pardon?
What have they gone up to?
They've gone from 35 to 36 mil.
Wow, but that's still 2 mil smaller than they are in IMSA competition.
Well, there you go.
For that car.
So
what's the weight that it's at now?
20 kilograms more. It's gone up to 1320. But we're not finished. We're not finished.
All right.
We've had.
I feel this is like an infomotion, but wait, there's more.
There is more. Well, look, this is not you buy one you get one free. 2.1 degrees of wing angle added, so it's running more wing. So on top end, that's going to make a difference. However, more wing, of course, will give you more downforce in the corners, I suppose. So it's not all bad.
Yeah.
But they've had quite a bit of rake added. So the angle at which the car runs down the circuit, it's been given quite a lot of rake, which again will not help straight line speed.
Back, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the angle at which.
Yeah.
So if you imagine a wedge of cheese, it's how angled it is.
Being underneath the car and you're increasing that angle or decreasing.
Yeah. So we won't really know the effect of that on pace until tomorrow. And then, of course, tomorrow is the big qualifying. Yes.
That does explain, maybe that explains some of why we saw them back at scrutineering earlier on today. Maybe they knew that was coming. And
possibly
they've re-scrutineered their car. The question will be, is the time tonight, Thomas Preining's time, done on the old settings? It wasn't Thomas Preining's time, but the time the car tonight.
I would think that,
we can't screw up that time, by the way.
No, well,
even if that's done on the old settings, that's the time that counts.
Exactly, but to be honest, it's for the SP9 cars, this session is more practice than whereas the cars that are below SP9, it is qualifying effectively, because tomorrow when we have top qualifying 1, that is when it makes a difference to grid position and get you into Q2. So
this is final qualifying for everybody
but SP9 and SPX. Yeah. So this is, and so they've had to make real use of the track when it's been completely clear. That's not been straightforward. They've got 1 more go at it tomorrow in qualifying 3. Then we have our shootout effectively, where only 5 SP9 cars get through from top Q1 to join the 13 that are already in top Q2 for the real shootout, where the pole setters decide.
The top 9 places.
Now, BOP, that's now, since we got here, well, since the 10th of May, that's the 3rd change. It's the 2nd change since we've got here. So there is, I'm sure, in fact, if we looked across the race control, we could probably see some commotion, probably, because I think as far it comes out publicly, that's when the rest of the teams would become aware of it. So, Yeah, interesting stuff. Lots to play out.
So is it worth mentioning the, therefore, pole sitters in the other categories that we can do now? Because this is their qualifying session.
There is another session tomorrow, though, remember. There's Q3 for everybody.
Yes,
for everybody.
Yes,
okay.
Provisional pole sitters, it would be. Yeah.
So that's Black Falcon Team Identica in Cup 2. They're in 33rd overall in their Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. So this is the 992 Cup class, which is very tight, actually, because Kate Kramer Racing are just about 2 seconds behind them, 2 seconds on 15.5 miles. Mühlner Motorsport in the 123 car, that's the car that Alex Brundle has been added to, is just another 6/10 behind that. So that's your top three in the Porsche 992 Cup class. But by the way, they will be among, because they've got a good fuel allowance and they are quick, they will climb up through the field. And at the moment, those in times are sitting, what did I say, 28th? 28th, no, before that, whatever I said, they were.
33rd overall.
33rd. They could well be knocking on the door, if not inside the top 20 on Sunday afternoon. We've seen that happen.
Well, certainly in NLS races, that is the chance for the Cup 2, or formerly SP7 cars, to really shine. We've had an NLS race this year when an SP7 car has led outright. It was in the first hour, and it was actually pitting on the lap that it led, but nevertheless, it crossed the line before everybody else after about 7 laps.
The 4 Motors Bio Concept car, that's another 991 this time, Cup class car. So that is the AT leader, the number 320. And in Cup 3, that's one of the SRS Zorg Rennsport cars, the Porsche 718 Cayman. So that's the GT4 Club Sport. Hyundai Motorsport N for the 830. That's the Manuel Lau car, isn't it? The number 46. Mark Bessing driving that car at the moment. It's the Elantra TCR. KCMG at the top, number 47. Actually, in 47th position, nice bit of symmetry there. And that's the Toyota, one of a Throng, Phalanx, whatever it is of Supra GR GT4s, on a 8:56.6. That's pretty. I mean, that's quick. That's quick for that car. They're in 47th and leading SP10 for the number 47. After that, it's RPM Racing in 49th position that lead their class. That's the RPM Racing 991 Cup class car, the number 152. Saw that in the pit lane yesterday. Rather nice colour scheme on that. Team Mathol Racing AV have the VT3 class leader. Actually, I've missed a couple out there. I'll go back, excuse me. RPM Racing we mentioned. Subaru Technica International 114 lead SP4T in 50th position. That is the Subaru WRX. GT Tyre Motorsport have the S-shaped cars. G comes after F, so that's the newer car. Then it's RPM Racing for SP7 in 56th position. That's their Porsche 991 Cup car. Then Team Mathol for VT3 in 80th position for the number 300 car. Car showing us not starting this session, actually. So that's their time from the first session earlier on today for that Porsche Cayman S CB12. Then we've got Adrenaline Motorsports 240i, the number 246. That leads the 240i class in 84th. Max Kreuzer Racing, the 110 SP3T is in 85th position for the Golf GTI TCR GSE. That's the car that caught fire, wasn't it? The 110.
Yes, it was.
I remember.
So that's a class leader. So, wow. Okay. Schmickler Performance, powered by Ravenol. The V6 leader is in 89th position for the number 562 Porsche 911 Carrera. Then Hyundai Driving Experience is next up. The 527 front-wheel drive VT2 class in 95th. And That's Johannes van Overbeek in that car, is it? Says Overbeek next. No, it's not spelled the same actually. And that car hasn't come out in this session as well, so that is relying on its time from the last time. And VT2 rear-wheel drive is, no surprises, is the Adrenaline Motorsport car, which is the BMW 330i. That's the 330. And that had problems earlier on as well. That was the white car. The blue car up just after the carousel.
More penalties coming in at the moment, and it's the car at the top of the timesheets. Hubert Haupt, one of the most experienced drivers in the field for Haupt Racing Team Mercedes-AMG Team Bilstein. Non-respect of the speed limit. It doesn't say which speed limit, whether that be the pits or a code 60. The fastest lap time will be cancelled. Now, that's of little consequence, given that that car is already in to top qualifying 2, and indeed this is not the time where that would be applicable anyway for them. So, however, it is a first warning. So if something happened again to that car, the penalty would be more draconian than it would have been otherwise.
Do we know whether that's a Hubert Haupt fastest lap time that would be deleted, or would they lose the Jordan Love time?
I think it's the cars. No, it's Miney's, Arjun Miney's team.
They did it earlier on, and then Jordan Love got to it afterwards to continue. Yeah, so potentially the fastest lap of the session gets deleted. As you say, it's all rather academic because all of the SP9 or X cars are going to at least be involved in top qualifying 1, and if you're not, you're already into top qualifying 2. And we already know there's a good batch of cars that are pre-qualified for the second qualifying session. 13 of them, in fact, into Q2 already.
Another penalty coming through, and unfortunately it's Jethro Bovingdon of Evil Magazine fame.
It was him who got the penalty.
He's got
speeding.
The start from pit lane from the end of your start group at the 2 DMSB penalty point, plus and a 2-minute penalty in the race.
I mentioned that earlier, but I didn't know which one of the journals it was.
Apologies.
No, that's fine,
non-respect of flag signals. That's a hefty penalty. Hefty penalty.
So that's car 73, I reckon.
That's correct, yes.
For GT4 from the SP10 field. He shares that car with Christian Gebhardt, Guido Naumann and Jörg Wiedingen, who are in a Gen 2 GT4. And obviously it takes a bit of time to get through this paperwork for various investigations to be taking place, and maybe also to summon either team manager or the driver directly to make sure that everything has been discussed and then the penalty is issued. These are not as serious as they might be in the race, of course. You can still obviously recover the situation if you dock laps, although if it gets really serious, they will summon you into the pit lane to cop a penalty, and sometimes a significant one in the early stages of the race. So there needs to be definitely something there to make sure that people adhere to the strict regulations. Car off wide there, it was the Mini at the Kleiner Carousel. Now, I don't think it was in the barrier, but it was a touch wide, perhaps to allow one or two cars through. I don't know whether that was the Bulldog Mini. Oh, there were two Bulldog Minis, the 112, which is in the SP3T class, and there's also the 126 John Cooper Works GP car, which is a VT2 car, front-wheel drive, needless to say, it being a Mini.
One is red and one is black, so that's quite easy. It was the red one, that one, because Charlie Cooper is in the black one, and the 112 is the red one.
Okay.
So that's Danny Brink, Marcus Fischer, Uwe Krumscheid, and Marco Zabel. Yeah, a very decorated car, that, in the context of Nürburgring competition.
Sounds it.
Yeah.
It might have been just a clever bit of driving, actually. Well aware that there were some fast cars wanting to get through, so don't occupy the concrete strip of the Kleiner Carousel. Just get well out of the zone, the danger zone, if you like, and then nip in behind the GT cars. You might even be able to steal a bit of a slipstream down the early part of the Duttinger Hur as well, out of Gaugenkopf. Strange sight again of cars rejoining the Grand Prix track as somebody at speed is coming around the Grand Prix hairpin and almost making a beeline for you initially, but thankfully those cones that are obviously going to keep cars separated. It's almost like hay bales back in the day. That's what kept spectators safe. And the cones are doing the same thing this evening.
I've got a quick quote before I leave you to it, gentlemen, from Martin Raginger from the 24 Falcon Porsche. He said, remember we saw him with a reasonably clear track. He says, everything was great on the track. I had a free run. Everything's fine with the car. It's a great feeling with a GT3. Driving on this track in the dark, it's what we've been waiting for all year. 24 hours on this also-cool track. Do you know, I really like the fact that somebody who's as experienced as Martin Raginger, who probably actually could drive this track with his eyes closed, and our good friend Peter Kate, I have seen him drive this track with his eyes closed and simulate it with a dinner plate. Quite
really?
Oh, yeah.
If you've not seen that video, he can talk his way through the track, his gear changes, and moving the dinner plate as if it was the steering wheel. And when you sync it up with the video from the onboard, it's... And he could not see the video, I promise you. It was great. So when Raginger says something like that, then you've got to know how good this is. Pro drivers love this place. By the way, we'll talk to Peter Kate this weekend. He's written a book.
Nice.
He's written a book about this place, about racing in this place. And I'm sure he'll come in and talk to us. He knows where we are. Right, gents, I'll leave you to it.
Is that specifically his experience of this as well?
Yeah, I presume so. We'll ask him when he comes in.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to ask all about that.
Questions.
I need to make a call home to make sure there's a space on the bookshelf for it.
I think, that needs
well,
to be reserved.
that's my
right
thing.
now.
Is that why you're moving house? Because the bookshelves have taken over?
Almost exclusively, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. Yes, more room for my racing books. Absolutely.
There is just under an hour and a half to go, an hour and 23 minutes to go on the Radio Show Limited network of channels and sound and vision around the world. All free, all live, no blocks or breaks, all the way up to race start on Saturday. Then if you're in North America, it's on speedsport1.com. It's free, so there's no need for you to miss it. If you're in France, it swaps over on your channels to a French language commentary. Thanks to Bruce Jones and to Peter Snowden to take you through to the end of this session. It's Peter Mackay, but first here's Johnny Palmer.
John Heidoff putting in a sterling effort there for the first couple of hours or so of night qualifying, and this for all of the teams outside, well, pretty much all the teams actually, this is the only chance they get of running the car for a decent length of session in the nighttime hours. We've got one more qualifying session after this, which is tomorrow, Q3, where all cars are permitted to take part, although the SP9s will have to sit out the first 20 minutes of that session as well, as I read it, and it is an hour and 15 in total, but it's held from 1:30 in the afternoon until 2:45, so obviously nowhere close to daylight. Top qualifying all told, Q1 and Q2, will take place between 5:30 and 7:15. So the next time we've actually got competitive action in darkness, we'll be in the race, Peter, at that point.
Yeah, this is a critical time of race week here at the Nürburgring 24-hour. Now completely dark. That sun came down quick, didn't it? With official sunset was about 45 minutes ago or so. So yeah, really important, because even in some of the top lineups, you've got drivers who have tons of experience in racing the NLS all season and know the place inside and out, but others who are very fast drivers and race all over the world at a top level. But the Nürburgring Nordschleife is unique, and every mile you can get under your belt is helpful. And to win here, you need really strong depth in your driver lineup as well, because unlike in other championships where a safety car can reset the field on several occasions and then you put your best driver in at the end, you can't do that here. If you lose time, you lose time. That's why qualifying in this 24-hour race, you think, well, who cares about qualifying in a 24-hour race? At the Nürburgring, it matters. If you're not in that top 20, you've got to take way more risk in those first couple of hours, and risk here equals, well, it often doesn't equal reward sometimes.
No, agreed. I mean, you can try far too hard in those opening laps.
Yeah.
At the end again, those first few laps are incredibly valuable, because after about 2 laps, you are going to start to catch the tail enders. from Group 3. Bearing in mind there's what is it, 2-minute gap between Startgruppe 1 and Startgruppe 3. 2, I should say. And then Dry comes after that, doesn't it? 1, 2, 3, yes. So you're talking 2 minutes, another 2 minutes. So they're already starting 4 minutes behind all the SP9s. 2, maybe 3 laps maximum that you get as clear road. And that's if you're leading the race.
Yeah.
But if you can make positions without having to worry about the tail enders in the third group, then really the time to do it is as early as possible. But like you say, it can go so badly wrong in that first 10 minutes as well.
Absolutely, you've really got to lay it all on the line if you don't have that advantageous grid position. I mean, we've seen 2 years ago Kevin Estre starting from 11th and putting together one of the most incredible laps you'll ever see. There's lots of footage of it online to check it out. Opening lap of the race that they eventually won, but coming through from 11th to 2nd on the opening lap, the level of risk and the amount of potential pitfalls along the way was enormous. And then last year, of course, starting from outside the top 20 and trying to fight the way through, again, you're burning up a lot of energy and reserve. Getting up in that front group, getting up in that top Q2 is so important. But there's going to be so many drivers, so many teams that unfortunately are going to be disappointed tomorrow night going into the race.
But every need to push like crazy, even if you do miss out on those 6 spots that are up for grabs, because everybody from 20th position backwards, Q1 decides where you will start on the grid. It's like Formula 1 qualifying right now, so Q1,
just
Q2,
like
Q3, but if you don't make it into Q2 in F1, that's your grid position locked in, basically, on the back 3 rows. And the same goes for the cars that don't make it into Q2 from the first qualifying session. I'm mesmerised by the work going on down at Conrad Motorsport on that Lamborghini still. There must be about 10 mechanics working on that, but all independently. They've all got their own jobs. And then there's no discussion, really. There's no kind of, banter as such. They're enjoying the work, but it's just crack on, keep going, because we've still got an hour and 18 minutes to go. Even if they can get out for the final few minutes to do maybe 1 or 2 laps around the Grand Prix track, I think that will be worth doing.
It will, no doubt about it, because remember, in the Conrad Motorsport team, I would say their team leader as such, Axel Jeffries, who, because he knows this place so well, then you've got Jelmer Burman, a platinum driver, so 2 really strong drivers in there, but Danny Soufi and Pavel Lefterov, less experienced here, particularly Danny, and in the dark, that's where you want to get the car out there and get turning lap times, get the drivers up to speed in this critical time, and get used to what the traffic's going to do, because the drivers are building a picture in their head over the whole week of certain cars and how they behave in certain places and where they go. Very, very important indeed. Confirmation again of the top time. Hubert Haupt's team, car number 6, Team Bilstein Mercedes, that their fastest time will be taken away due to speeding in the pits. Luckily for Hubert and his team, it will not be too important as tomorrow's the big one, the Q2, which they are already qualified for. But Hubert's a silver driver now. It seems ridiculous to say, a former DTM driver, DTM star for Opel. Remarkable, isn't it?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Obviously, for a number of years he was gold, and now he's reached a particular age, which means he could drop down to silver, but one of those sneaky silvers, as often drivers are in the early part of their career.
Well, we need a word for, is it, dubious bronze or brilliant bronze or something, because we're talking about, just going to list some bronze drivers for you. Max Angelelli.
Yeah, okay.
Johnny O'Connell. David Donoghue.
Yeah.
They're all bronze.
Liking this.
Yeah. So,
make up a
Legends team.
Martin Brundle, Stefan Johansson.
Two cars. Oh, well, actually 5. They might need 5 to just so they can go and have a nap.
I think Emmanuel Pirot is close. If he isn't already a bronze,
oh my word,
he might be a bronze. And Dindal Capello can't be far behind.
Oh my goodness. That's a scary thought.
Just got some news of a car stopped up at post.
I was going to say,
Hatzenbach.
we had confirmation that the track was clear, And you know how long that lasted? 33 seconds, I think.
And you didn't even have to say anything, Jim.
I know. Just my mere presence, perhaps.
Did you think it? Did you think?
I thought
track's
it's
clear,
not
I
really
must
very
mention
exciting enough at the moment.
not
Can we have more yellow flags, please?
If you don't know what we're talking about, this harks back to the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona this year. Bruce and Johnny were doing the Sacred Coffee overnight shift from 2 till 6 in the morning, wasn't it? That,
Yeah, something like
you
that.
were doing. It was incredible, and we'd
Ungodly
been
hour, yeah.
green for 6 hours or something. And Johnny comes on, and he literally says, "Oh, you know, you were reading out how long we've been." I think, how long have we been green? Oh, we've been green. Did you mention green? And I was listening to it back the other day. It was playing out on RS1, and Eve reminded me, and I went and looked back at our production chat, which we do on Skype, and literally she counted back. Oh, brilliant, Johnny! Yellow flag coming in 10, 9, 8, 7. There it is. She didn't even have to go back 7. And Johnny, tell everybody what your justification was for that from.
I said the race needed a yellow flag for me. It had just got a bit stale. It needed a bit more excitement.
That was post-rationalisation there, Jim.
Was it?
Yes.
I can't remember word for word.
Very good.
But, you know, I mean, yeah, that style of racing needs a good full course caution. A little while. Everyone gets some more fuel. Wave by. Start racing again.
It did change the complexion of that race.
Oh, it did, massively.
Because the Cadillacs at that point the longer the green flag went on, the more they built their advantage, and that was really shooting them the long runs. The short sprints, the yellow flag, green flag, yellow flag, that suited.
That is complex, so that is it for them for this evening. It's a pity because they all wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to do some night laps. That's the 330 BMW, which is a class leader.
I tell you what, Cup 2 is going to be the class to. I mean, obviously the outright victory is incredible always, but Cup 2 is going to be a great class to watch, because we've seen Kay Kramer Racing get out the blocks fast. They've had a great season so far in NLS and in the qualifying races, but they've actually been usurped. They've got Milner Motorsport just 0.6 of a second behind them on an 8.5-minute lap, but they've been usurped by a hot lap from the Black Falcon team, Identica team, car 170, and 8:31.4, who've just gone 2 seconds quicker. And that, of course, is for provisional grid position. Can that be approved upon tomorrow? Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Still opportunity, isn't there? An hour and 15 still to go. Bizarre moment a couple of seconds ago. Sven Muller losing his Porsche number 33 on the Grand Prix part of the lap, on his own as well. They were coming through the fast left and right. Is that the Michael Schumacher S? Or is that...
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not the bit immediately out of the hairpin on the Grand Prix track, so not that first kick, but then the much more significant left and right. He went through the left okay, but then the rear continued to rotate.
That's Bilstein, which is the one after Michael Schumacher S. It used to be called Vorsteiner, which made me feel thirsty.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
That Warsteiner is, will certainly get you wanting an evening beverage, an adult beverage, shall we say. It just rotated on its own, and in recovery, he's not bothered with the full Nordschleife lap. Instead, turned right, as you can do in these sessions, and nipped in via the back door. But Falken Motorsport have just descended upon that car, the 33 Porsche, to just do various checks. They might even give that car a full new set of Falken tyres as well and send it back out again. But strange moment. Also in the pit lane, a big old queue and possibly some contact. No, just avoided. Chris Meese desperate to get out, though, in the number 39. That's the ID Quattro liveried R8 LMS GT3 Evo 2.
Was that the blue Ferrari?
No, it was the Wolkenspiegel team Monschau car, which effectively came to a stop in the fast lane.
Yeah. But when you've got nowhere to go...
so it was the blue Ferrari then, the blue and white Ferrari?
No, Wolkenspiegel's a silver and red car. Pro Sport is the... no, sorry, not Pro Sport. Racing One is the blue one.
Yeah, sorry.
Apologies.
Yeah. I saw the kick up on the back. Have you seen this penalty, guys? Here's another one, and this is significant because this was the car that was, I think, top of the class in the GT4 category. Non-obeyance of flag signals, Der Motorsport, the number 68. I'm pretty certain we were talking about that car earlier on. It was, if not on provisional pole, certainly doing well. 5 positions off the grid. 5 positions off the grid.
68 Aston Martin from the SP10 class. SP10 looks a real cracker this year. 16 cars, and there are Toyota Supras, there are 4 Aston Martin Vantage AMRs, there are BMWs, lots of those as well, and just the one Mercedes-AMG GT4 run by the Haupt racing team. But it's really tough to pick, well, I was going to say a winner, but it's tough to pick a top 3, certainly, as well, in that gaggle of cars. So we will try and keep you across what's developing in SP10, just many of incredibly tight battles that will be competed over 24 hours. And interesting to me, but I mean, I love the one-make stuff, don't get me wrong, but I do like the variety as well. Big smile from Fred Makovici as he gets out of the Grello.
No, Michael Christensen's just brought that car in, and Fred was ready to go with his helmet on, his balaclava and hands and everything. And then someone tapped on his shoulder and said, go and have a coffee, Fred. And he's like, oh, okay, no problem. He didn't seem upset. He just thought, okay, no problem. Michael Christensen staying in the car. So perhaps Michael wanting a few more laps under his belt. I love Michael Christensen's helmet design. Beautiful white colour with the sort of angel's wings on the side of it. It's wonderful. Now, one thing I always think, Mike is a wonderful person. When he won the Rolex 24-hour at Daytona 6 years ago, of course, he had the winner's Rolex watch. And later last year, he actually put that, his one and only Rolex winner's watch, I might add, put that watch up for auction for charity and donated the proceeds to save the children in Ukraine. Now, fabulous. They don't give away Rolex 24 Daytona famous watches. What an amazing thing to do.
You can't buy one.
Pardon? No, you can't. No,
you can only win one.
Yeah.
And that all of these drivers in the top classes could afford to put their name on the waiting list and buy a Rolex Daytona. They want to win that watch, even if they're sponsored by another watch company, because it says so much about you as a racing driver. And for him to have done that and then pass it on, wow.
Perhaps you want an only chance to buy one, in fact, when it's auctioned for charity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But, I mean, Rolex will have been all for that as well.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Now, that they're doing quite a bit of work on this Grello Manthey EMA Porsche, because the fenders, essentially, the bits of bodywork that hold the headlights of this Porsche have both been removed, but they're trying to access parts of the car behind those, aren't they? And it all slots back together again, just about.
And the headlights, I was speaking to Richard Tuthill, who's of Tuthill Porsche fame, who's incredible, but I don't know how would you summarise Richard Tuthill, a car builder, rally driver, Porsche builder extraordinaire. And they built a one-off off-road version of a 911, and it had RSR headlights, which is the kind of bigger brother of the GT3R. And I suspect now it will be very similar part. They were €5,000 each for a headlight, and they needed to phone Porsche Motorsport to ask how to switch them on.
Okay,
and you're talking about one of the best Porsche preparation and build companies in the world, and they were that complex that it needed a special code and plugged into to get them switched on.
Well, when they're worth that much money, and heaven forbid they get stolen, they go back to wherever they've gone, and then, if you prevent them from being turned on, that's you're rather what's the word I'm looking for? Disincentivized. There we go. To steal them in the first place. Perhaps not.
So if you're planning on buying a set of RSR headlights for your 911, maybe don't bother. It's a tricky exercise. So the Manthey team ratcheting the headlights onto the front of the Grello machine. Of course, Manthey Racing, the most successful team in this Nürburgring 24-hour race, 7 victories. However, if Phoenix, who have won in several different names, they've had 6 victories. So if the Scherer Sport PHX team, which is formerly Phoenix, if they win, that will be they will tie the all-time record of 7 victories at this wonderful race. And really, the late 2000s, particularly, Manthey just dominated here with Timo Bernhard and Lucas Luhr and Romain Dumas, who's in the race, the most successful driver in this race, 4 wins.
Yeah.
Great to see him here. I don't know where he gets his energy from, Johnny. He seems to be competing in anything with wheels every single weekend at opposite ends of the earth.
I think it's all about actually energy conservation with Romain Dumas, because he's a very cool customer.
Oh, yeah.
Clearly loves his racing, but saves it all up for the seat time rather than necessarily having a huge amount of energy when you chat to him. But I mean that in a purely complimentary sense. Gilles Magnus back on the main straight. He's driving the number 22 entry from Audi Sport Team Car Collection, sharing the car with Max Hofer, Dennis Marchal and Luca Engstler. Engstler more familiar to me in recent years, being at home in a Hyundai TCR car, various TCR machinery over the years, but Engstler becoming more and more experienced now in the GT3 world. It's still the number 6 car at Mercedes that is fastest. Arjamani's back on board that now. It's set earlier on in the session at 8:13.190. Now, the penalty that was put towards that car earlier on, because Hubert Haupt broke the pit lane speed limit, didn't he? I assume that the lap they were going to delete has now been taken from them, so the 8:13.1 still sits there, or are they going to do that post-session? It'd be a bizarre way of doing it. The theoretical best might shave yet 2 seconds off that, by the way, so we could quite possibly get down to an 8:11.
Do you think there might be some conversation going on?
Well, maybe.
I think that pit lane speeding is fairly cut and dried.
It's a black and white infringement, generally speaking, because you...
What? I don't understand.
You either are speeding or you're not speeding, basically. But like track limits, you're either off the track or you're on the track.
Oh, let's not go there.
The black and white reference that I didn't get, I just blanked that from my brain.
Okay. As in no grey area down the middle.
My favourite thing about the Nürburgring 24-hour, and I have about 25 favourite things about this amazing race, is that we don't really have to talk about track limits.
How many?
25 at least. Yes, but
the track limits are somewhat self-policing around here.
Yes,
if you're
they
on
are.
the track, then you're going to wipe a wheel off it.
That's right. And one of those many list of favourite things about this race, and one that will be in common of many fans around the track, is the love for the Foxtail Opel Manta. It's a fan favourite, and I'm afraid race control are going to have to barricade their door, because they might have a mob at the door, because I'm afraid the Foxtail Manta's been caught speeding. Non-respect of the speed limit, first time, which I presume is in the pit lane. The fastest lap time will be cancelled. So the Foxtail Manta's fastest lap has been cancelled.
I mean,
you can hear the groans around the circuit.
It can only be in the pit lane. Imagine the Manta being done for speeding on the track. No.
No.
You want it to be going even faster than it perhaps has done already, but it's not really in the spirit of the rules, is it? Mantas, you don't want to say should be exempt from most penalties, but at least the first one you just brush aside.
You just
say,
a little tap on the shoulder, just going, look.
It wasn't here last year. Give it a break.
Imagine if they had people dressed up in police officers' costumes who went into garages and handed tickets and say, "Do you know why I pulled you over, sir?"
And then he points to Hubert Haupt and says, "Well, he was speeding. He didn't get done." No, I think he finally has been
Kevin
done.
Estra.
I think you are, Kevin. Absolutely. Yeah, well, 53 minutes of this session to go now. Full dark conditions and a little bit cooler as well. Our last track temperature update, which was a good half an hour ago now, it dropped to below 10 degrees Celsius in the air. So it's going to get cool quite quickly out there. It's going to be quite a difference to what the drivers experienced late in the afternoon session and early in this evening session.
You've been looking at this particular timing screen in front of us for a little longer than I have, Peter. Remind me what those blue blocks mean on the left-hand column. Is that to do with whether the car's been in the pits recently?
Do you know, you've stumped me there, Durrani.
Okay.
I'm afraid I'm just getting used to it as well.
Oh, fine.
One thing I do like about it, though, is the speed trap times.
They might be outlap. Are they telling us that the cars are on outlaps?
I think
I'm talking about the number 4 Mercedes.
That's showing the pits here.
Is showing in the pits.
So it's in the pits, okay.
But
that doesn't tally then with cars further down.
Yeah, the Scherer Sport car ahead of it, the number 16, is also in the pits.
I wonder whether it's an indication that it's doing or has just done an outlap, which for a couple of those cars have immediately become in-laps and they then go into
Could
the
be
pits.
the scrubbing tyres, maybe.
Yeah.
One thing we do have in the booth is an accurate speed trap time through each sector, so we can see who's quick and who's not in certain areas. And noticing the Mercedes SP9 car seemed to be particularly good in the fast parts of the circuit, as Mikel Azcona in the number 830 Hyundai Elantra TCR gets his nose chopped off by a rapid Falcon Porsche SP9 car charging through. And Hyundai with a superb presence at this race, both in entrance of cars, both at TCR level but also at the more entry level as well, getting people in through the Hyundai driving experience, and of course the naming of the final corner of the Grand Prix circuit as well. And we've coasted down to the Eifel region in the beautiful Hyundai Tucson. It was very comfortable, I must say.
We have matching.
I could say we've got
we
one of
matching?
those as well. Yeah.
Ooh.
Thankfully, they are slightly different. Well, yours is a deep red. I've not actually
Yes.
seen it, but
Yes.
and whereas ours is more of a gunmetal grey. So we're not going to get
Stealth.
mixed up. Yeah, but they're very smart
It's a
cars.
hybrid as well.
It is, yes. I think,
Self-charging.
according to Paul, who delivered them both, actually,
Yes,
yours
he did.
a day before mine, they're exactly the same specification,
Wow,
just different
ultimate.
colours, so we don't get them mixed up.
Very reasonable. We Peter and I played the
I
game
lost this game.
of Price is Right,
Yes.
and any Hyundai dealership in Edinburgh, if you want to make a little bit more than your target, have Peter come in. Because they'd have happily given over £40,000.
38.
Is that what you said?
38.
Yeah, you
Yes.
said 38.
Premium car.
There is a premium badged car, though, isn't there? I think that's maybe the top level, which is not far off 40, 37 and a half.
Ours is 32.
Yeah.
A huge amount of car.
Huge amount of car for that, and the range starts at 28, which he needed. If he hadn't been sitting down in an extremely
Comfortable.
comfortable front seat of the Hyundai Tucson, he would have fallen over at that point. Very good. I've got some news, gentlemen. If you don't mind, I'll
Of course.
fire this in. We had a little spin earlier on for the Falcon Tyres Porsche 992 GT3R. It was Sven Muller. He said we unwound a bit in qualifying too. That's something different. If you only know the NLS, you almost have to relearn the track because there are so many blind corners and sections of the track. Visibility this evening not quite optimal because of all the barbecues. The boys are partying outside and we're fighting inside. The spin wasn't dramatic, nothing serious. If you drive at the limit, there's always the risk of having a spin. And Arjun Mayani, first time driving in the dark, he says it was scary at first, but I got used to it. I'm happy with today, but we still have some work to do. And thanks to our team on the live ticker at www.24h-renan.de for that. And we have a Toyota in the gravel on the Grand Prix circuit. It's the number 75 car. And he's not getting out of that without some help.
So that is one of the SP10 Supras.
Yeah.
Oh, lost it quite a long way back there, and a couple of spins actually in the stones. One of the Teichmann Racing cars, the GR Supras. I heard you two earlier on during qualifying one talking about Teichmann Racing and the fact that they're not running any KTMs at least this year, and to a certain extent that project's been put to the side on the back burner. But what a great car to replace.
Oh, yeah.
Though. These Supras, there are two of them from Teichmann.
I think so.
Yeah, and then
Scott Marshall in that
a
car.
couple more from the Toyo Tyre with Ring Racing crew. Predominantly German teams, actually, in SP10. All but one. We've got KCMG of Hong Kong running a Toyota for Josh Burden, Eduardo Liberati, and the Estonian driver Martin Rump. But otherwise, they're all very local teams, actually.
Well, Teichmann are actually, they share, they're just a couple of kilometres down the road from our digs in Kiddlebach, and are alongside the local Aldi and Lidl, actually, as well, the Teichmann Racing. But yeah, switch to the SP10 GT4 spec GR Supra. That driver in the gravel there was Scott Marshall in the pink Teichmann Racing SR10, who's one of the ring taxi drivers here at the Nürburgring, called Harry Flatters, part of the Harry Flatters ring taxi drivers.
Excellent. Lee Groom and Alex Phillips have enlightened us. I've been watching this graphic all night and wondering what it was. It keeps coming up on the screen about qualified or not qualified. So the light blue on the screen.
I thought that was a pretty big lose there for Michael Christensen. Maybe not. Sorry, John.
No, sorry. The light blue and the dark blue on the tower graphic and also on the timing screen are whether the cars are pre-qualified. Light blue are qualified in Q1, dark blue in Q2, a black not through to either.
Nice.
So I've been seeing that graphic all night and wondering where I was supposed to be looking, because I hadn't noticed the subtle changes underneath the tower graphic on the left-hand side.
Yeah, so it's the very small banner underneath the picture
where
of
the
each
number
of the
of the car
cars,
is, yes.
where the numbers and then the class is next to. Michael Christensen's also got one of the blue lights flashing from the windscreen, basically, as well. That's additionally to the Lumirank number system. And the blue light...
It is part of the Lumirank, actually.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, they've incorporated that into the Lumirank system.
Clever.
Yeah, really clever.
I mean, Lumirank have a habit of just revising year on year and just making that whole system better. But do all of the SP9 cars have that flashing blue light, regardless of which qualifying session you're in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that flashing blue light is to tell the traffic coming up behind that one of the fast cars is coming through. So all of the SP9 cars are fitted with that. And that flashing blue light on the car says, rapid car coming through. Yeah, so it basically is to warn the slower traffic that that's what's going on. So can you imagine that you're going along in your, maybe in your little BMW 2 Series or your lower class car, little Hyundai, and you've got this flashing blue light and probably the driver flashing the headlights as well. So it's like a techno disco going on behind you, and you've got to try and keep the car on the road as well. So the Hype Racing Team SP10 car with the Val brothers and Reinhold Renger there as well. Car number 89. The fourth driver in that car is Alexander Croker as well. So like Croker, and you get. So the driver's just swapping a seat insert there as well. Of course, if you've got four drivers of varying shapes and sizes, a seat insert can often be really helpful to just chuck in there to make it a little bit more comfortable. I mean, I always remembered how on earth Jörg Bergmeister and Patrick Long were able to share a car, because Jörg is about 6'5" and Patrick isn't.
Do you know how?
They had a massive seat insert.
No, the seat slid forwards and backwards.
I thought they had a huge seat insert.
Well, I'm sure they did
Patrick
as well.
had a big seat insert, as well as this.
The seat was
did.
on runners.
Yes, I remember, yeah.
And I've got a feeling that at some stage when the seat was fixed because of regulations and they were still driving together, the pedal box moved.
The pedal box.
And the pedal box.
Yeah. And it didn't hold them back, did it?
They used to have to move the seat.
It certainly didn't hold them back, that's for certain. I do love that one of the Hype Racing Team SP10 drivers has got a Sebastian Vettel-esque replica helmet. That's very cool indeed. I think that's Reinhold Renger, actually, who's getting into that machine. Lucas Stoltz on board of the number 4 Mercedes-AMG Team Bilstein machine. And that's the comic book car. That's the car that's been painted, Johnny.
Oh, really?
Yes, painted, not wrapped.
Okay.
So it's a lot more expensive and a lot heavier.
But is it's a comic book style livery?
Yeah, so it's like a washed,
not graphic,
worn yellow, steady, with the sort of black accents on it as well.
Nice, but actual paint has been
actual
used.
Paint.
Talk about winding the clock back.
Yeah.
Well,
that discussion.
I can't tear my eyes away from these graphics now that John's mentioned.
I know.
The light blue seems to be exclusively reserved for just the fastest car in this session, in actual fact. Then you've got the darker blue the less prominent, the not sky blue, which is all of the pre-qualified cars, I believe.
Yep.
And then the black means
Not in yet.
you're in Q1, but you're not into Q2.
Correct.
Yeah, fine.
Correct. So
Sorry.
for those watching on the live stream, if you see a black bar, that means they've got to get through Q1. Light blue means they're already in, and sort of bright blue is P1, but that's quite easy to see.
The fastest in this
as well. Now that discussion about do you paint the car, do you wrap the car, this discussion goes back 50 years. 50 years when Roger Penske, there's two Penske stories here, when Roger Penske ran the Porsche Can-Am cars back in 1972, they painted it, they spent $3,000 in 1972 on the particular, I won't mention the company they were sponsored by because that'll break certain regulations, but the company they were sponsored by painted it in their colours and it was beautiful. But when Helmut Flegel arrived from Porsche, he went bananas because he's like, oh no, I'm going to lose my job, this is going to waste so much, oh why did you put all this paint on the car? And they eventually came to an agreement, and when you've got 1200 horsepower the weight wasn't such a problem. Fast forward 30 years from then when the RS Spider came out with the DHL colours, that was again a big argument. Team Penske wanted to paint the car and Porsche said absolutely no way, we're wrapping it, the paint will be too heavy, and Porsche won the day that time, so it's 1-1. So I wonder if there's been any decisions to be made with their new programme as well, like that.
I may not have explained what I got told very well, for which I apologise. So light blue is pre-qualified for the top 19 via the NLS and qualifying weekends. So they are already into Q2.
When you say light blue, though, do you mean that sort of... You mean the darker blue of the two?
Washed blue.
Like the number one car.
Oh.
No.
No.
I think the light blue means that you're fastest in this session, basically.
Yes.
Then you've got the
that's not
royal
what I'm
blue,
told.
The royal blue, that well done, yes.
which is cars already into qualifying too.
Yep.
And then those with the black background, so for instance, the 911, the 16, the 101.
Yes, I've got that the wrong way around. The bright blue, the light blue means that you have qualified into Q1 in this session. The dark blue means...
Oh, that's clever.
Yes.
But no, that...
I don't think that's correct, but...
Okay. The dark... I think, can we accept then that the dark blue means you're already into
Yes.
Q2?
Yes, we can say that for certain.
Yes.
Yes.
So the light blue we're still trying to work out.
But there is no...
There is no light blue.
I think it's simply... That,
No,
the only one that's got the
They're
light
already
blue
in.
is car
They're in.
6.
They're in. And we're in already.
Okay.
Car number 6,
car.
light blue, already in.
Okay.
Royal blue, already in. Black, not in already. The comic book car has come into pits. We can agree on the colour of that. It's yellow. With a little bit of blue and red painted onto it as well. I'd love to hear more about who painted it and the process behind
And I'll
that.
tell you what, though, they must have painted extra panels, mustn't they? Just in case.
Well, they will, because if they have to change a nose or something like that, yes.
But you
absolutely.
can see the brush stroke. I was standing to the left-hand side, where the mechanic at the moment is doing they're just bedding in another set of brake discs on the front, and brake discs and pads on that car. And I leaned forward to have a look around the area of the louvres and had a good look at it, and the paint around that. Now there are some decals on it. The Bilstein decals, obviously the number panels and the stickers that are required by the event. They are decals.
Yeah.
But the actual body of the car, including the strakes and the blue on the front and the AMG, you can see the brush strokes on them. They look absolutely fantastic. I'm really impressed by it.
Beautiful, beautiful.
It's a nice take on an art car. I tried to describe it to start with as if somebody had sketched the car very quickly with a Sharpie and then sort of coloured it in. And I think that kind of is how it looks great.
It would make a great model it would make a great kids model for Christmas. You get it white and then you go bananas with it with the Sharpie pens. It's an interactive gift. There we go.
I can imagine
all the
somebody
black
like,
lines are hand
and
painted on
here's
that.
one for the kids, somebody like Neil Buchanan turning something like that out from Art Attack. And what he's done is he's had a project. Do you remember Art Attack?
Yeah.
A project to basically sketch and then, as you say, fill in with marker pens a GT3 car, and there it is appearing on pit lane and in the garage. you have to look at it several times to realise it's actually real and three-dimensional. I love the idea.
Also, the number 1 Audi defending champion car for Scherer PHX ran the 15 last year, number 1 plate this year. That's in the Audi Quattro Trans Am colours of Hans-Joachim Stuck and Hurley Haywood. And they've been bedding in some brakes as well. So interestingly, a lot of the teams choosing to do that in the cool of night. Just bedding in brakes and pads, etc. Piston pads, I should say.
Just to be absolutely clear, we're not saying the whole car has been hand painted.
Yes.
The black lines, the blue lines, and those streaks are hand painted. The rest of the car is still paint. It was spray painted, but it's still paint.
Okay.
Yes.
But the accent marks have been. You can see the brush strokes on them. That light yellow colour is also paint. It is not a wrap. It was spray painted, but it's still paint.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cell shaded Ollie on disco.
Oh, that's cartoon style.
Cell
yeah.
shaded. Thank you, Ollie on disco.
Cartoon style. Now, I noticed quite a few people asking. It shows you how popular a driver he is. Nick Tandy, a driver who's awesome around here. Not here, not driving this weekend, not on the entry list
I had
as
to
well.
check that, but you're
Yeah,
right.
not here, unfortunately. So for those asking, Nick, if you're listening, can't wait to see you back here and taking on the Nordschleife once more. But he is a bit busy this year, of course, with his commitments with Team Penske. Got the first win for the Porsche 963 on the streets of Long Beach. So Nico Menzel at the wheel of the number 44 Falcon Porsche. I'm a little bit surprised with Falcon so far, Johnny. Their number 33 and number 44 car, they've been... It is, effectively practice for the SP9 cars. They are a little bit behind the pace we would expect them to be at this stage.
But I think you can say that for all of the Porsches collectively, if you look at the NLS races so far this year, Porsche at times have struggled. That's why I was surprised when you, an hour or so ago, read out the penalties that they'd been given, which essentially will slow down the car. But yes, to your point about Falcon, not in this car, but the 33, it was Nico Müller who completely unforced error on the Grand Prix track as well, an area he knows amazingly well, to just lose the back of the car. Now, whether they're testing one or two, boundaries in terms of setup, and then he came back into pit road saying, no, that's the wrong direction to go. Only he will know, and it'd be interesting to have a conversation with him. And thankfully, he was in a position at the time to be able to just duck in via the hairpin on the Grand Prix track, and team were able to fix the car up, or maybe go in a different direction setup-wise.
Yeah, I think so. I think the only outlier, I would say, with the Porsche, I totally agree with you, but I think the Manthey have had their moments.
Okay.
Winning qualifying race 1, and they have had bursts of pace. They're sitting second on the timesheets today with a very good, in fact, bettered only by the number 16 Audi, the ideal time, which is very important at the Nürburgring with the slow zones, etc. Their ideal time is an 8:10.8, which is only 1.7 off the lap record. So with a clear run, they've got good pace. But who knows what that balanced performance is going to do.
Yeah.
I think it's the weight that's... I mean, even with the wider restrictor, more power, yes, but that weight's going to kill them, I think. 20 kilograms, but it's been put there for a reason, over a stint. Fuel, braking, tyres... change of direction, acceleration, the lot. So we'll see.
There is absolutely a reason for doing it. Now, as you say, we don't get to see all of the data that race control have access to, but they do. They are forever looking at these sector times, sometimes mini sector times, to work out where those cars can potentially go fastest, and looking at theoretical lap times as well, which is what the two qualifying sessions have been based upon to get cars into Q2 already. And the one thing NLS races don't necessarily give you is a true balance in terms of the more numerate cars. So maybe, we've had fewer Porsches perhaps across the opening first 3 NLS races, and the strength of driving lineups too. They always try to get as many top-class drivers to NLS races where possible, but there have been clashing events. Notably, you think about Rover racing with their BMWs. Was it the first NLS race where they actually had 2 cars but only 2 drivers?
That's right. Yeah.
Because everybody else was committed at an IMSA meeting, I think, or
WEC and IMSA clashed because Sebring
Super
people like
that
Axel
weekend.
So Rover in NLS 1 got to a certain point and then parked their second car because they wouldn't have been able to switch drivers otherwise. and then got it going again for the final stint. But
That's
it
right.
still was worth
That's
doing.
That's bad forward planning, isn't it?
Yeah, it's terrible.
You could have just brought them in on consecutive. Could you not just have brought one in, parked it, left it standing there,
Switched
and brought
them
the
over.
other one in? I've seen that.
There are
happen
really
in a race
niggly
that I've
regulations
been.
about rest times, though, aren't there, and all that sort of
Oh
stuff.
yes, of course.
But
No, that's it. You're right.
it is rest times, yeah.
It's
That's
rest
the reason.
time. You've got to have half the time off
That
from
you've just been in the
whichever
car.
car you've been in. So it's not just the.
Oh, yeah, you can't just jump into another car and say,
We'll
I
start
don't
again.
need any rest for this car. I haven't been in it yet.
I have seen
might have
people,
worked.
I have seen people do that in fact, in a race that supported the British Touring Car Championship in the historic GTs. I'm pretty. Yeah, no, I did see that. Somebody who was driving both cars, and they had to coordinate your pit stops.
Yes.
So first car comes in. I think it was one driver driving two cars with a spare driver, so it was a little bit easier. So it was three drivers across two cars. So
Okay.
So the driver A brings car A in, gets out. Driver B gets in. Driver A stays in the pit lane, while driver C brings the second car in, gets out, and driver A gets back in. So it was a little bit easier.
And then you bring the chicken and the fox back across the river.
Yeah.
And leave the fox there.
Yeah.
But then the chicken and the seed.
No.
Forget that. I've lost it
I
already.
heard that one.
Michael Christensen still at the wheel of the 911 Porsche. That is second fastest. And it's been about a quarter of a second separating the Argent mining time in the number 6 Mercedes from this 911 Porsche for quite some time now. And keeping my eyes peeled on the timing screen for improvements in time. I think Lukas Stoltz might be. He's now on to the Nordschleife, so he might be the most likely to shave a bit of time in the closing stages, because we are down to just 30 minutes now, Peter Mackay.
That's right, yeah, we are. Only 30 minutes to go in this now pitch black session here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. And yeah, Michael Christensen getting up to, he's on it as he goes through ice curve. Actually had a slow puncture earlier, for those who joined us earlier, both in sound and vision. We noticed we were a little bit confused by the Michael was at the wheel of the car at the time, and he all of a sudden went very, very slow and crawled the car back to the pits. We thought, what's going on there? But it was a slow puncture, so nothing too much to worry about there. As Kevin Est actually having a chat with one of the Michelin engineers. Hugely important part of doing well at the Nordschleife is making sure you got the right rubber to play with. Of course, the open tyre formula, many tyre brands to choose from. 8 out of the last 10 years have been won by Michelin, so they're definitely the manufacturer with a target on their back, but they'll have Vulcan gunning for them. And Yokohama, Johnny, those Vulcan horse cars on Yokohamas have been quick. They've won in the NLS this year. Best chance we've seen for Yokohama to come and put their name on that honour roll.
Yeah, I firmly stand by that. And there's something about the BMW. Previously it was the M6 that ran on Yoko's, and now the M4, but they're big cars for GT machines, and often the cars with the bigger footprint. Used to say this about the Bentley GT3s as well. Bigger car, further distance from front to rear wheels, and they're just generally kinder on their tyres early in the stage when they're full of fuel. So whether it's something about Yokohamas and BMWs that does fit very well, and we already have at least one Vulcan horse BMW in. The 100 car has already qualified for Q2. 101 and 102 desperate to get in there as well in the remaining 6 spots. But one of those spots has to be a Pro-Am car, as we were working out as well.
8:17 flat there for Christensen. 8:13.4 is that car's best time. However, I think he's doing a little bit more longer runs now as well. And of course, maybe a little bit more traffic. As Franz Conrad has got the mechanics gloves on, he's got his different spanner out, and he's getting it's an Öhlins damper, isn't it? An Öhlins damper ready to go onto his venerable Lamborghini Huracan. Of course, Franz, a former winner of this race in the past. I love that. That's a proper team owner, isn't it?
Just checking the tolerances. And a slight
He knows
shrug.
he's on camera
He
now.
does
Big
now.
smile. Big smile from France. He loves this, doesn't he? He's absolutely
I mean, he'd sooner
loving
his
this.
car to be out on track, but
yeah.
then again, he's not one of those team bosses who will take a backward seat and just allow his team to crack on. He wants to be actively involved and to lessen the time that it's being fixed. You know, if you throw another body at it, then theoretically it should be out more quickly. They are running a bit short of time though now, and a number of body panels still need to be put back onto that car. So they're working on suspension. I'm guessing that's rear suspension. It's all because of this incident coming out of Galgenkopf, and there was just no space at all for either of those cars to go. Peter Snowden earlier on was saying it just appeared to be a genuine misunderstanding between the two drivers. How Alessio Picariello managed to get out of the throttle and then onto the brakes as quickly as he did in the number 33 Volker Motorsport Porsche to avoid absolutely everything. But there was one moment the Cayman was slightly up in the air. The Lambo, I think, fully left the ground due to the impact in the Armco barrier to driver's left as that rear connected and stripped the Lambo of one of its rear wheels. It doesn't get any better the more times I see that, frankly, and you can really realise now why this car has been in the garage for so long. Straight bits still being sourced and still being applied, Peter.
Yeah, and I think for Conrad, it looks like with 26 minutes to go, it's unlikely the car will get out. Maybe for a quick shakedown, possibly, but it might be a busy night on the spanners there for Conrad, and get the car spick and span ready for tomorrow. And because I think with either with Jelmer Berman or with Axel Jeffries, they've got a good chance of getting one of those 5 golden spots out of top Q1 to get into top Q2. We've seen Axel particularly put together some blinding lap times here. On one lap, he is a real specialist, actually, I have to say. So that don't write off that Conrad team as well.
Was it last year or the year before when Axel qualified second?
Yes, 2 years ago.
2 years, 2021,
Yeah, it was blinding. Blinding speed.
And that was the year when the number 1 BMW was on pole. Nick Yellerly did that time.
Yeah, in the rain.
Yes, because it was. I was reading about this in the 2021 annual on the driver cross. That second qualifying session, I'm that sad. I hadn't bought the 2022.
You're well prepared.
That's what it was. It's all down to the preparation. I appreciate that, Peter. I haven't yet purchased the 2022 version, which I get every time. Well, this is actually only a tradition that began last year, but I've continued it this season. Down at the Tankstelle Hotel, where we sign on for our accreditation, you've talked a lot about the model shop, where you spent possibly an uncontrollable amount of money yesterday, or you've gone in for it with a plan and then you came out with maybe 4 times that amount of stuff.
Yeah, I bought Norbert Singer's book.
Yes.
I bought Top Trump's Top 30 Moments of the Nürburgring.
They sound great.
A fridge magnet.
Yes.
And a woolly hat. I said that's French quite a lot, didn't I? I got out of control.
You haven't got to the end of the list yet.
No, there was one more.
Still going.
There was something else. Oh, and a model toy, a Rennie Rast DTM car for my goddaughter's collection.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And then sort of next to that model shop area, there's quite a significant bookshelf, various books slotted in there, and you can buy annuals on the ADAC Masters GT Championship. You can buy them on World Touring Car Championships of old, for the Nürburgring Langstrecke series, and they also produce, it was a very special book actually in 2022, the 50th anniversary edition of this particular race. So there's a whole separate chapter this year which has added €5 to the value, I noticed, running through the whole history of this particular race, which I'm really looking forward to getting my teeth into. But yes, the driver cross involved me reading about the 2021 race, where Nick Yellerly did eventually take pole position, but that was a delayed Q2 because of the weather, and it was deemed to be too wet at the time. That's another reason, in a sense, that these sessions are run, because if it can't happen at all, there's no risk of that, we think, happening tomorrow, by the way, because the forecast is good for Friday. But if it had been completely rained off in 2021, then you have to revert to these sessions for a grid order. What happened a couple of moments ago for the 39 Audi?
Well, the number 39 Audi, we've been talking about this, the number 39 Audi came up behind a GT2 class Mercedes. Now, through the corners, the SP9 car is much faster because it has much more downforce. But on the straights, the way that Mercedes GT2 just boogied out of the corner, it was like the Roadrunner, me mate, goodbye. So that is going to be a great talking point over the course. I'm sure the drivers don't think it's great, but over the course of the weekend, where the GT2 cars, there's only 2 of them out there, mind you.
Yeah,
but when
that was the 46.
Yes, it was. The Frank Bird car.
Yes, but it's Jörg Wiebahn driving it at the moment. Yeah, sharing with Thomas Jaeger, Elia Earhart and Frank Bird, as you say. So it's the 46 Team HRT Mercedes GT2. And there isn't a GT2 class as such in this year's race. They're all under the umbrella of SPX, which is what the Glickenhaus has run in the past. There is no Glickenhaus here this year. They're taking at least one race away. I believe, though, that the pole position award is still called the Glickenhaus Trophy, which it has been for the last 5 or 6 years. So yeah, they'll be qualifying for the Glickenhaus Trophy tomorrow in qualifying 2. There are 2 individual sessions. The first of which, if you finish in the top 5, that will mean you're automatically through into qualifying 2, which is the real important session that would decide the front 10 rows, basically, of Saturday's grid.
So 21 minutes left to go, and many of the drivers with fast times in the pocket already have decided to, have parked up for now. In the pits at the moment, we've got the number 6 Mercedes-AMG Team Bilstein machine, the number 911 Manthey Porsche, the number 16 Sherasport PHX Audi, number 4 Mercedes of Lucas Stoltz, and a few others, but no such relaxed pace for the number 40 car, which is I'm going to call it the DTM Legends car, actually. That's its unofficial title, I've just given it. But what a driver lineup it's got. Mike Rockenfeller, one of the drivers in that machine, who made his debut in the Porsche 963 at the weekend at Laguna Seca, but 2013 DTM champion and a winner of this race all the way back in 2006, Mike Rockenfeller. Martin Tomczyk, the winner of the DTM championship in 2011, has done this race 9 times. And then Timo Scheider, a double DTM champion and winner of this race 20 years ago, alongside Volker Strycek in the Opel Astra V8 Coupe. And I think people of our generation, Johnny, big Gran Turismo fans, will remember the Astra V8 Coupe from I think it was Gran Turismo 3. I think the first one that was on PlayStation 2 I remember that car fondly. Is Manthey doing more brake disc changes and brake pad changes, just bedding in the brakes, getting them all ready for tomorrow, for top qualifying, and of course for the race on Saturday. One brake change. Can anyone make it on no brake change?
No.
I think, Johnny? No. Got one then.
Yeah. At the very least.
Yeah.
You might even see 2, but that's something you've got to commit to very early on, because that's every 8 hours really. And I suppose you want to postpone the first brake change as long as possible, because if you can get to 11 hours, then they'll think, oh, we'll just about make it. But they do them so quickly these days. Actually, you don't lose a huge amount of time, but yeah, one change would be the ideal. There are so many hard stops around here, you can't get away. As good as brake technology is these days, you just cannot get away without changing discs on all 4 corners.
Yeah, very, very important. There's certain parts of the circuit where you feel you're in a flow and you're not actually, actually kind of leaning on the brake that hard. But then there's other
run, for instance, up through Kesselchen and Klostertal, down the Dottinger Hoor. That is a moment where the brakes
cool off,
are gulping in air and going,
thank God,
so much for this,
And then you get to Klostertal and you ram on them again. Yeah, it's the whole car takes such a punishing around here. No matter what, it doesn't matter if it's a full factory SP9 car or if it's a very lightly modified road car. Of course, all the classes that have a V on the front of their nomenclature, or whether that be VT1, VT2, V3, VT3 and so on, they are referred to as VLN production cars, so very close in construction to a road car. Whereas the SPs, the 24-hour specials as they're referred to, many of those are more race prepared, with a few exceptions along the way. So, but whatever car you take, they all take a bit of a pounding. The number 40 Audi, this is the metallic silver, kind of chromed silver and red machine. One of the special liveries to celebrate 40 years of Audi Sport. Has gone just around for one round around the Grand Prix circuit, maybe doing a little bit of systems checks, bedding in brakes, scrubbing tyres, all those sort of things. The teams have 29 sets of tyres. They usually like to use about one an hour, one every stint in the race. So that only gives them 5 sets to play with for the 3 qualifying sessions and then top qualifying. And if you're in qualifying 1, of course, Johnny, you're effectively using a set more than those who are already into qualifying.
Yes, you wouldn't want to continue with that same set of tyres, bearing in mind it's done an outlap and 2 flyers. And the massive change in regulations this year is that you have to do those Q1 and Q2 sessions on a full tank of fuel. That wasn't the case previously. This version of qualifying, I think, has been in place for, this will be the 3rd year. There's actually an extra place up for grabs this year as well. It was only the top 4 that were able to go through from Q1 to Q2 last year. But there are 6 places up for grabs in 2023. 5 of them will be the top 5 as things stand at the end of qualifying 1, plus the best placed Pro-Am car. And if there are Pro-Ams included in that top 5, then you go down to the next Pro-Am car outside of the top 5. Is my understanding. We'll explain all of that to you at the time. It will be much, much easier to do that rather than all the theoreticals. I'm still very confused every time I look at the car 7 on the timing screen, because it keeps telling me it's on a really quick lap, but then it crashed, unfortunately, at the start of the Dotting of Hoor, and those sector times have remained green ever since. It did not complete that lap. It came back via the internal roads here at the Nordschleife, and still it is parked in box 8, where there are at least 3 other cars, possibly 4 other cars in the garages. And again, you have to recalibrate your brain every time you come here, because there are not enough garages for all of the 130-odd cars entered into this year's race. So an awful lot of sharing needs to be done. And give and take, I suppose. If you know that a team that you're sharing the garage with is due to pit, there are conversations sometimes saying, OK, well, we're GT3, can we pit maybe a lap ahead of you? When are you likely to need to come in? How far around the lap are you? Can we nip in and do our pit stop and get gone again to ensure that the operating apron outside the garage is free? But sometimes they will double park cars outside the garage. As long as you're not in the fast lane, then wherever you are able to come to a stop, as long as it's vaguely outside the right garage, then that's where the work can take place.
Patrick Niederhauser out onto the Nordschleife for a quick run. This is the number 39 Audi Sport Team Land machine, painted in the Group B rally car throwback colours from the Audi Quattro from the mid-80s of Michel Mouton and Walter Röhrl, Hannu Mikkola, etc. So Audi Sport really talking a lot about their heritage in this particular race. Of course, those were the very early days of Audi Sport back in the early 80s. So very important indeed. As Patrick Niederhauser coming across, a little bit of traffic as he comes down towards Kloster Tal, and then up the hill towards the Caracciola carousel, and then they're really riding not just the concrete camber there, they're right up at the top, maximising the corner speed as much as they possibly can. It's quite a sight, and many of the top photographers we have here on site this week have captured some fantastic shots already of the cars being thrown in there with aplomb. So car number 39, Patrick Niederhauser, one of the few drivers in Audi's roster who hasn't won this race, but a very decorated driver indeed, graded as a platinum by the FIA, multiple race winner in GP3 and in other single-seater categories as well. So, but he's his teammates, Christopher Mies, a multiple winner in this race. Likewise, Christopher Hasse as well. So he's got some super decorated and experienced teammate, has Patrick. No personal best sectors set yet for Patrick on this particular lap, and if he comes up to, when he gets to the line, Johnny, I tell you what, might be close. We've got 12 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah.
He might I think he might get 2 more laps if he wants them, or if his team want him to have them.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, just.
They're doing, well,
Coming
I
through
think lap is
Belloff
8:15, 8:16, something like that, so he'll be crossing the line with more than a lap time in hand. I had actually forgotten that Patrick is a platinum driver, so thank you for pointing that out. First time at the Nürburgring 24 hours was only in 2020, though, so 31 years old. You would have expected him to have competed in this amazing race a few more times, but as you say, single-seater background. Daniel Harper also circulating. He's just done, I mean, it's only a 10-second sector at Sector 4, but no one's done a 10.179 in both of the qualifying sessions so far, so that is an absolute best and an indication that the Ulsterman is really pushing hard now in car 72, the BMW Junior Squad M4.
Yeah, and that Sector 4, yes, it's short, but that's the run out of Flugplatz and through Schwedenkreuz.
Ooh, okay,
so,
yes. Full commitment
Full
area.
commitment area, thank you, that's the words I was looking for. And the speed trap, 270 kilometres an hour. That's big speed. That's big speed.
Well,
so he's on a good lap right now.
That on its own is an amazing number. But then you think about the next corner after that. You were talking about Arenberg and the stop that is necessary after you've committed to Schwedenkreuz. So first of all, you're breathing in, you're holding your breath. Can I get through the left-hand kink and stay on the track on the other side? Yes. But now I've got to brake and get the car somehow over to the left-hand part of the track to get the ideal route into Arenberg and then the Foxhole after that. It's a spellbinding bit of the circuit, but all of the corners are kind of like that, really. That's definitely an area I look forward to on the sim and on Gran Turismo, because you think this is where a good lap time hinges upon, I feel.
Absolutely, and we talked about Gran Turismo earlier on. I mean, Gran Turismo is as a simulator and as a racing title for so many years. It's a way that people discover this wonderful racetrack for the first time. Many people around the world, and you look at the Japanese interest in the Nürburgring, a lot of that comes from Gran Turismo as well. So it's brilliant to have their continued involvement and mapping the circuit in such fine detail. Frederick Makovecki is out onto the Nordschleife now, about halfway around the lap in the Manthey Grello machine. So after he was stood down about an hour or so, he's been brought back out again. So Dan Harper, interestingly, we mentioned Dan's sector trap speed time coming through Flugplatz and Schwedenkreuz, very fast commitment there, 270 kilometres per hour. He'd also set the car's personal best speed trap time coming to the end of Sector 3, which of course is at Flugplatz as well. So either Dan's getting massive, he's getting great exits out the corners, or maybe they've trimmed that BMW out a little bit. Maybe they've just thought they've just adjusted the setup slightly, maybe taken a little bit of wing off, maybe. We don't know. We can only but speculate. If we asked, they would tell us to move on. Move on. Next question, please. So Dan Harper coming up towards Ice Corner and then through to one of my favourite parts of the circuit, up towards Flansgarten. It's one of the parts of the circuit where the SP9 cars get all four wheels off. Whoosh! There he goes, up over into the air and then lands back down again, and then through to the full commitment Belloff S, named after the late great Stefan Belloff, who set that immortal lap at the Nürburgring, 1,000 kilometres in 1983, a 6:11 will never be bettered. Of course, it's and that was a corner where Stefan, in a early 956 on early 1980s tyres, that lap time, it will remain legendary.
Well,
Part
you
of
have
that,
to remember it in the context of the time, don't you, and what he had available to him. But it was quite a different track in the early part, at least. Was that a Südschleife lap then as well? The little loop that...
No, just Nordschleife.
Just Nordschleife alone, okay.
Yeah.
So a shorter track than we're running at the moment, but not much shorter, in fairness. I mean, remove the first couple of sectors that we've got on the Grand Prix Strecker, and otherwise you can't do that in the machinery we're racing this weekend. Just the Nordschleifer and a 6. What do you think?
Hard. No, I don't. I think it's very hard to say.
Also very unfair to compare, you know,
Impossible.
the times that he was doing it.
I mean, I think what Porsche did with Timo Bernhard in the 919 Evo when they did a one-lap record, that was a great way to give a modern context to what Stefan achieved with that lap, and they did a 519. But on effectively a time attack special of an already very fast race car.
Yes.
Dan Harper sets an 8:17, one of the faster laps of the day. Not that car's best, but just 9/10 off that car's best of the day, but a strong lap nonetheless. Certainly compared to the rest out on circuit right now. I'm surprised, Johnny, with a circuit with no slow zones at all on it. And relatively cool track temperature. I'm surprised we haven't seen more kind of real hot laps going out there. But do you really need to be taking the risk in SP9? That's probably why.
That is it in a nutshell.
Yeah,
they'll be working a way of the car being good across a stint. So what we haven't necessarily got an easy way of mapping is how many laps a lot of these cars are doing. But I wouldn't be surprised if through the last few hours, and we've been running for over 3 hours now, that a number of the key teams will have been doing some dummy stints, effectively. Go on, you're laughing and pointing.
Franz Conrad, he's like the world's fastest janitor. He's got a key, a bunch of keys in his pocket with 20 different keys there, with probably for every truck and where all the boys are staying and everything. But Conrad Motorsport's still working very hard on getting their Lamborghini back together. I think there's quite a lot more work than we initially thought. A lot of parts being prepared, etc. And with 5 minutes left in the session, that car is not getting out. I think we can safely say that now. You can never write off mechanics. You think, no way that's getting out, and then all of a sudden you see it firing along the pitch straight. As Fricadelli, they're finished for the day. They're number 30. Ferrari being pushed into the garage, as Kevin Estre waits patiently with all his driving gear on, with 5 minutes left on the clock.
I don't know whether Kevin's actually done any laps in this.
Yes, he has. He went out earlier.
Okay,
and he set that really quick 8:13.4 early on. So Kevin into the car now. He does have time to do one flying lap if he wishes.
Yeah.
But he will do it from a kind of cold start, effectively coming out of the Grand Prix circuit to the right-hand side of the cones and gun it and go for a one-lap dash. Will he do that? We shall see.
But also this enables them to do another quick driver change. They'll be rehearsing these probably a bit later on into the evening as well. But there's nothing better than actually having a hot race car that's just done a few laps and plunging themselves into a real race scenario where often the rotation is kept the same. So as Christensen gets out of the car, 9 times out of 10 he's going to be buckling Kevin Estre in, and Estre's going to be lying back, probably allowing the straps to be buckled in, because you just can't see anything when you've got the helmet and the hands device on. You can feel around, but better for your outgoing driver to do all the hard work there. And out he goes. So whether he'll do a full lap, we'll wait and see. He's certainly got the time to do it, because his lap begins with 4 minutes to go. Even if you cross the line with a second to go, you will be permitted to complete that lap. So it's labelled as a 3 hour plus session, but that can easily extend to another 9 minutes, let's say 10 minutes in some cases for the slower classes.
Well, car number 39, Team Land Audi, being waved in to the pits. Patrick Niederhauser brings that car in. Audi Sport, I cannot stress enough how good a job they've done with this throwback livery for the Audi Group B Quattro rally cars. And they're sitting 9th in the overall timings. That's a combined timing of both sessions we've had today. We've had plentiful running. We've had an hour and 45 minutes earlier on, and then a little over 3 hours today, this evening. So plenty of track time. Dennis Olsen, a name we haven't mentioned yet today, at the wheel of the Rutronic Porsche. Great lineup in this car, Johnny. Dennis Olsen, Julien Andler and Matteo Cairoli. Young guns who have been with the Porsche family for what seems like forever. And they're a car to watch, I reckon.
And another team approaching this race in a Le Mans style with just 3 drivers.
Yes.
And that has become much more the fashionable thing to do from about last year. It feels very recent. Normally you would enter the 24 hours of the Nürburgring, because it is so intense, with at least 4 drivers. But, you know, looking down through SP9, I mean, Falcon are interesting for me because they've got one 3-driver team, one 4-driver team. But the 2 Get Speed Mercedes, number 2 and 3, 3 drivers. The number 6 Merc for Team Bilstein by HRT, just the 3. So that's the Arjun Miney, Jordan Love, Hubert Haupt car. I still think the majority of SP9 cars do have 4 drivers, but it just works for teams like the junior team and Daniel Harper, who again has pushed really hard through that short sector, gone even quicker. But sector 6 for the Ulsterman is now a personal best time, so this could really be a time where he means business. And how far from home is he? He's not going to get another lap at the end of this, because he's got 2.5 minutes to cover within sector 7, by far the furthest, the longest sector of the 9-sector lap, and then that whole run down the Dottinger Hoor as well. But I fancy this is maybe the 72 BMW's opportunity to break into that top 6.
Yeah, it's been a great push here from Dan Harper at the closing stages of this session. And I wonder, I'd love to know if it's just been a little setup tweak, because at Sector 3, Sector 4, those, Flugplatz, Schwedenkreuz, very fast, but high corner speed as well. Yeah. It's not just have they trimmed the car out and they're taking more risk, or what have they found? Because they're setting each lap now personal best times, but also trap speeds as well. So there's something they've found there as well at different parts of the circuit. And Sector 6, well, that's Bergwerk up Kesselchen to another very fast, where straight line speed is important. Well, Kevin Estre is going for a run on the Nordschleife because he's going down Hatzenbach at maximum attack right now. Does Kevin Estre have another switch? When you put him in the car, I think he's got one switch on, off. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Absolutely flat chat, or stopped, basically.
He's already got to Versiphen.
Wow. How is that possible?
Am I? No, I'm talking
still
rubbish. I'm talking rubbish. Hatzenbach, yes.
Okay.
I thought that would be incredible.
That would be warp speed.
No, I was right the first time. He's going up to Exmüller now.
You're running out of Breitscheid. You're right.
Oh, my word.
Dealing with Versiphen. And now he's heading for Bergwerk, first of all, that much tighter than you expect right-hander, and then Klostertal and Kesselchen. So Bergwerk, this is Kevin Estre, the left-hand square of your picture. Hopefully you are enjoying us in sound and vision, and have been for the majority, or if not the whole of this session. And remember, this is the last night practice for anybody entering the race. It's not the final qualifying session for the other classes outside SP9 and SPX, because there's still an hour and 15 minutes to run tomorrow as part of standard qualifying 3, if you like. And it doesn't really matter in terms of times and positions on the grid for any of the SP9 and SPX cars, but nevertheless it's very useful time, because this is giving you an idea of what things are going to be like in 2 nights' time. We're not expecting the weather to change a great deal for Saturday night, Sunday morning. Daniel Harper heading out of Hohenrhein now in the chicane at the end of the lap. He will cross the line and doesn't improve again. So that's traffic, I think. 8:16.884 was his earlier best, but the time he's just done was an 8:26.2 for the Northern Irishman. Keeps him 7th position. But there's pace to be found out on track, and indeed from that BMW, which is not... No, it is already in, isn't it? Because it's... Yeah. Because the 3 winners we've had in NLS, I think coincidentally, are into Q2. It's not because they won races, but because they were able to churn out theoretical sector times way better than a lot of the other cars.
Well, I think for me, when we're asked for our predictions, this is probably one of the most difficult races in the world to predict. They're certainly one of my picks to go for the win on Saturday and Sunday, because this year their performances in NLS have been fantastic. They were 5th in race 1, 3rd in race 2, and the race that we called, Johnny, together, NLS 3, they didn't win. They absolutely wiped the floor with everybody. And they've got such a good unit, Max Hess, Neil Verhagen and Dan Harper. It's such a good trio that they are. They've lived together, they've trained here at the Nordschleife, and you look at their the way they split up the driving, it's almost perfectly in 3/3. Nobody gets special treatment in that team, and they're a really good unit. And yeah, they've clearly got a package underneath them, car, tyre, everything to go for the win. They didn't have the luck last year. I think this year they're in with the best shout they could ask for. Checker flag is out, but Dennis Marshall is in the middle of a lap at the moment. He set a couple of in fact 3 personal best sectors on this run. So we might see the currently 10th place number 22 Audi move up the order. It's running I could call it a throwback paint scheme, but not throwing it back too long ago, to about 10 years ago, because it's a throwback to the Audi R18 hybrid that won Le Mans 3 times in a row.
Yes, they're all
nice little touch,
very nicely liveried. I being a touring car fan, and particularly liking the Audi A4 World Touring Car, British Touring Car kind of mock livery as well,
which is also the same as the Trans Am from the late 80s. It's that grey, red, white block colour.
There are subtle differences, I think, aren't there? But I mean, the Trans Am cars in period were superb bits of machinery.
Like flames out the side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this round here, touring cars are, you know, the photographs on the Nordschleife, you had to have flames piercing out the side of your DTM Mercedes or Alfa 155 for it to look the part. So yeah, keeping an eye on the number 22 Audi, that is certainly improving as it works its way fairly late on in the lap now. It's into the long sector 7 and is currently in 10th position with Marshall at the wheel of the car collection Audi. And that's the number 22 car now, just scrubbing the track surface almost. It's a fair bit of porpoising there as it caught the curb, but then that did just about balance out. Wonderful collection of fans now. I mean, this is typically the area that you descend to. If you don't go to the main Grand Prix Strecke, then it's up towards Brunchen and Flansgarten that you will go, because you can hear the cars from a long, long way away, particularly on the single lap stuff that we'll be doing tomorrow night. And then all of a sudden the burst of LED lights, which will illuminate the track ahead, but also that near area as well. If you go up there and explore the spectator banks, it is an experience, a wall of sound, several of them in fact, and speaker stacks as high as a 4-story building often.
Dennis Marshall is pushing this number 22 Audi R8 to its very limit. We talk about where the cars get all 4 wheels off. Well, we just coming through the Stefan Belloff S and down towards Schwalbenspons, over a little bit of a crest as it goes light, the car was on 2 wheels.
Wow.
Wow. Dennis Marshall is pushing, and you know he's pushing when he is flashing the car in front as soon as he knows that they're 2-3 corners ahead, and he's already on the Fed light flasher saying, I'm coming through, guys.
Yeah.
Be ready. And yeah, move. There's a rapid Audi coming through. And on to the Dottinger he goes. 4 personal bests sectors on this lap for Dennis Marshall. He's about 4 seconds off the hottest lap time, 4.7 off the ultimate hottest lap time, which is set by the number 6 Mercedes Team Bilstein car, and very nearly matched by the Manthey Porsche. So Marshall coming up through Tiergarten now, and then hard on the brakes, going, oh please stop, please, rattling it down the gearbox, and then hard back on the power, opening up that 5.2 litre V10, that venerable power unit that GT3 fans have become so fond of and familiar with over the years. An 818.6 for Dennis Marshall to close off the session for that 22 Audi crew.
Got pretty close to the 8:17.2 that car had already set. And you should consider as well that Dennis has only ever done this race once before, and that was actually 2 years ago in 2021. He's been busy in World Challenge GT3 competition since then, so wasn't able to be here last year. Very much getting his eye back in again, therefore. He was here with Audi in 2021 with Phoenix, in fact. But the 22 car this year being run by by Car Collection, I should say, and sharing that car with Max Hoffa, Gilles Magnus, the Belgian, and Luca Engstler. So whipping through the times then, they didn't really change a great deal after that very early time set by Arjun Maini in the number 6 Mercedes, the car run by Bilstein by HRT. So it's an 8:13.190. They must have had a better time taken away from them, or are they still in discussion about Hubert Haupt and his indiscretion in the pit lane, going a little faster than he was allowed to do? Second fastest for the 911 Porsche. And who set that time in the Manthey car? Was it an Estra time? Okay.
Estra.
And Estra completes the session at the wheel of the Grello Manthey Racing Porsche that he shares with Michael Christensen. There were plenty of laps actually for the Dane during that session. Fred Makovici, who thought he was going to go in the car at one point and then was called back. Thomas Preining completes that lineup. Third quickest at the end of qualifying 2, the number 16 car, which is the offering from Scherer Sport PHX. Their Audi for Michele Beretta, Ricardo Feller, Kim Louis Schramm and Marcus Winkelhock did an 8:15.0 ahead of Luca Stoltz in the number 4 Mercedes for Team Bilstein. Again, the second entry from HRT. 101 Volkenhorst BMW on the Yokohamas. Up there in 5th, they'll be happy with that. Kuba Gimasiak completing the session, the former Porsche Super Cup champion, Polish driver. And they want that 101 car desperately into Q2 to join the sister car, the 100 that's already there. So their pace in this session is pretty good. And the number 11 car, 6th fastest, which is the Schnitzelarm Racing Mercedes-AMG for Patrick Assenheimer, Marek Bockman, Colin Karasani and Marcel Markovits. So that is the top 6. Obviously, we can also whip through various class leaders as well. And remember, qualifying 2 and indeed qualifying 3 tomorrow afternoon, all important if you're not entering a car in SP9 or in SPX, because where you qualify, or where you have qualified at the end of Q3 tomorrow afternoon, and it's only an hour and 15-minute session, will be your grid position for the 51st edition of the 24 hours, the TotalEnergies 24 hours of the Nürburgring. And there's been an awful lot happening throughout the course of this evening, so let's refresh your memory. Some of it won't want to be remembered by certain teams, I'm sure. But again, it's risk versus reward for the SP9 cars, whose important sessions come up tomorrow, Peter Mackay.
Yeah.
You want a straight car by the end of tonight, but equally you want to have cycled through all of your drivers so they can experience nighttime running. Even if they've done that many times before, it's been a full year since the last time they've been able to approach that.
Absolutely, but I think Arjun Maini is definitely the driver of the day, putting that incredible lap time in, the 8:13, fastest of the day for the Haupt Racing Team DTM driver. And they remember as well that they're in the Pro-Am class. Their driver lineup puts them in the SP9 Pro-Am class, so that is a big marker laid down on day one. But as you rightly say, and as prudently say, this is the only things can go wrong really for the SP9 drivers today. It's all about tomorrow. 2-time lap dashes, single car qualifying. You don't want to miss tomorrow, that's for sure.
Yeah, we'll have it all, of course, live for you, courtesy of the Radio Show Limited network of channels and on the world feed for this event. And we'll carry audio via the radiolemans.com website, audio only, but also on those pages, the chats for those audio comments to be accompanied by pictures, as long as it is safe for you to look at them. We don't want you driving and viewing our in-vision coverage as well. But as darkness descended, that's where perhaps the real tricky stuff happened. Judging the speed differential becomes more dicey at that level of light. Unfortunately, the Lamborghini and the Cayman that made contact with it were already pretty much out of the session. It was the 184K Kramer Racing 718 Cayman that's part of the GT4 trophy for Cup 3 Caymans that made contact with the Lamborghini at the start of the 24h. It's a really rapid part of the circuit coming through Galgenkopf, and when you're just starting to pull the belts down and settle in for a long run down the tube there at the end of the lap, and all of a sudden that Lamborghini was turned left and hard into the barrier. Sven Muller with a bizarre spin all on his own on the Grand Prix track, and that was heading into the left-hander at the Bilstein curve. Thankfully, there's plenty of runoff there, and he was able to escape and duck into the pit lane as Martin Tomczyk picked his way through the various bits as well. And the Audi from Scherer Sport going strongly too. But the number 6 car setting its marker pretty high and pretty early on with Argentini, the 813.190 for Mercedes number 6. We move on tomorrow with qualifying 3. Join us for that.